Chapter 1702. 30 years. Ha 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 ha. Old thing. It's a question if you'll even live past 30 years. Shueishing laughed heartily, not taking Kuanglan's words seriously at all. All right, I'll wait and see if this day will come for Haosu. No need to wait. 30 years is too long. The door of the conference room was kicked open, and a voice as cold as hell rang in everyone's ears. Although it was low, it was mixed with thick true energy, causing everyone's eardrums to buzz, giving them a kind of deafening feeling. The door of the meeting room turned into a pile of wood shavings. Not a single piece was intact. Everyone in the meeting room jumped in fright. They never thought that someone would dare come at a time like this. One had to know that the Noble House meeting was a meeting of the strongest practitioners in the common world. The wood shavings slowly dispersed, and 5 people appeared in front of the meeting room. Lenny stood in the middle. He was the one who broke the meeting room's door, and he was the one who said those words. There were 4 people behind him. 2 were standing, and 2 were sitting. Yushu and Lingshan were standing, and Yutian and Wu Qintian were sitting. Yutian and Qintian were in wheelchairs, pushed by Yushu and Lingshan as they followed Lenny into the meeting room. Lenny? Shueishing couldn't be more familiar with this Lenny person. The first time he met him was when he was with Xu Emin, and Shueishing didn't pay much attention to him back then. But after a series of events, Lenny became Haosu's mortal enemy. Didn't you want to see if this day would come for Haosu? Then you don't have to wait. You'll see it now. Lenny looked around the room, his eyes landing on Sun Yikai and Sun Jingyi. He smiled and nodded at them before turning to Zhenhu. No pop-up window in the conference room. There were only a few acquaintances. Lenny didn't have any personal relationships with the others, so he naturally wouldn't greet them. When Sun Jingyi first arrived at the conference room, she was wondering why Lenny wasn't here. Wasn't he here with Qintian? But all he saw was Gonggao and Qindi, not Qintian and Lenny. At this time, the aristocratic family's meeting had already begun, so she had no way to call Lenny again. After that, Haosu attacked House Chen right away, giving him no chance to talk to his grandpa. He didn't think that Lin Yi would show up at the Noble House meeting like this. Is he here to participate in the aristocratic family gathering? This was practically a show of force. Lin Yi, I didn't even have the time to find trouble with you. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to me. Do you really think that we, the common world Haosu, can't do anything to you? Shueishing looked at Lin Yi, his eyes filled with rage. What a joke. I thought you brought some helpers, but you brought 2 handicaps, a normal person, and a mystic early phase Lingshan. How childish. Yu Feng's strength wasn't as high as Lin Yi's, and it was because of Yu Feng that Lin Yi got into trouble, so he told Yu Feng to retreat first. He himself was busy with the Noble House meeting, so he didn't have the time to look for trouble with Lin Yi. But this Lin Yi came knocking on his door. Did he really think that he was invincible as a mystic mid-phase peak? Shield bro, how did this guy become the head of Haosu? Why is he so similar to us? We're here to cause trouble, and he's not afraid at all. So what if my brother is handicapped? He can still take revenge. Yushu closed her mouth subconsciously after saying the word. She only breathed out in relief after realizing that Mingyao wasn't there. Otherwise, she'd tell Yushu not to curse, or she'd tear her mouth apart. I don't know, but there's only 2 normal people left in their house. That Xie Yufeng is even more of a weakling, and he's standing out. Lin Yi said. Oh, I see. Yushu nodded. Prophet Shu, your Haosu is done for. The sudden appearance of Lin Yi's group stunned everyone in the meeting room. They didn't know what was going on. Especially Elder Chen Kuanglan. He didn't understand. Why would the granddaughter bring her grandson here? Wasn't this just looking to die? Old Song Xiangguan, on the other hand, was a little pissed off as well. It was fine that Lingshan didn't want to marry Yu Feng, but now she was messing around with Haosu's enemies. What was House Song going to do now? Elder Wu Gonggao, on the other hand, didn't understand the situation. Chen Tian said that he had Lin Yi as his boss, and now Lin Yi brought 2 handicapped people to cause trouble? What was going on? Grandpa, hurry up and announce that we're not related to Qintian anymore. Isn't he harming us? Chendi lowered his voice and said to Gonggao. Gonggao looked at Chendi coldly and didn't say anything. It wasn't that he didn't understand, but he couldn't do something like that. Tian was his grandson. Grandpa, I'm sorry for making you worry, but I did say that I'll be your pride. Tian saw through Gonggao's confusion and comforted him. Over at House Sun, Ikai lowered his head and said to elder son, Grandpa, he's my sister's boyfriend, my brother-in-law. Eh? Elder son thought that his ears were damaged and he didn't hear it clearly. Ikai, what did you say? Grandpa, the boyfriend I was talking about. It's actually him. He's here. Sun Jingyi said helplessly, thinking that this Lin Yi was really something. It was fine if he didn't come, but when he did, he caused such a huge commotion. Elder son almost had a heart attack after hearing that. Why was Sun Jingyi's boyfriend here to cause trouble? How could this be? If House Yu found out about this, wouldn't House Sun be in trouble? Elder son coughed twice, and was about to tell Sun Jingyi not to say anything, and not to recognize him. But someone else came to recognize Lin Yi first. The talented lady of the Lu family, Lu Jinghan, had also come. Her face was covered with a veil. She did not want others to know her true appearance. She had been hiding behind the scenes of the Lu family. Even the people of the other aristocratic families did not know what Lu Jinghan looked like. However, the other aristocratic families did not care about her mystery. Even if she was as beautiful as a goddess, she wasn't a practitioner. The temptation of a beauty wasn't as strong as the strength of a practitioner. Jing, what do we do? Lu Tianyi stood behind Lu Zhenhu and asked Lu Jinghan in a low voice. Chapter 1703. Something's not good. I think House Yu is done for this time. Lu Jinghan pondered for a moment and said, she was a person who was good at calculation and analysis. Based on the research and analysis she had collected on Lin Yi during this period of time, it seemed that Lin Yi would not do something so stupid as to throw away his life. There was only one possibility, and that was that Lin Yi had absolute confidence. Then House Yu would be in danger. Lu Tianyi raised his eyebrows and walked quickly towards Lin Yi. Under everyone's surprised gaze, he greeted Lin Yi enthusiastically. Miracle Dr. Lin, you're here. Why didn't you tell me in advance that I was going to pick you up? Hehe, I'm here to cause a scene. If I told you, wouldn't I implicate you? Lin Yi was also a little surprised that Lu Tianyi would publicly support him at this time. One had to know that Lin Yi's current strength was far below House Yu's in everyone's eyes, but Lu Tianyi supported him so decisively. This was not an easy feat. Therefore, at this moment, the Lu family was also included in Lin Yi's scope of use. What are you talking about? What's there to implicate? You are my father's savior, and our Lu family's great benefactor. Our Lu family will go through water and tread on fire to help you. Lu Tianyi said. You're not bad. Lin Yi nodded. But Mr. Lu, you should stay away for a while. You're not a cultivator, so you can't solve the problem here. Okay. Lu Tianyi nodded and dodged to the side. Lu Tianyi, how are you? As soon as Lin Yi came, you went to suck up to him. House Yu will remember this grudge. Shuixing felt like he'd lost a lot of face. Lu Tianyi was slapping him in the face. And so, Shuixing decided that once this was over, the next target would be House Lu. Alright, don't write it down. I reckon that after today, you'll lose your ability to remember. Lin Yi said indifferently. What do you mean? Yu Feng raged. Lin Yi, don't think I'm scared of you just because you're a level higher than me. My father is a mystic late-phase peak, one step away from the Earth class. It's not too late for you to kneel and beg for mercy. What do you mean he doesn't know? Lin Yi shrugged and turned to Yushu. Shu, this guy's a little dumb. Tell him what he means. Shield bro means to tell you that after today, you're a dead man. Dead people don't have memories. Yushu said proudly as she looked at Lin Yi. Shield bro, am I right? Congratulations, you're absolutely right. Lin Yi nodded. Yay. Yushu made a victory sign with her hand. Ha 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 ha. Yu Feng started laughing. Lin Yi, are you out of your mind? You're just a bunch of old people. And you want to challenge me? Who do you think you are? I can kill you even if I'm a cripple. Yu Tian clenched his fists and looked at Yu Feng. Yu Feng, didn't your House Yu say it? If you want to solve your grudges, you can do it with force? Very well, I'll challenge you now. Challenge me? You. Yu Feng's eyes widened, as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. You're a cripple and you want to challenge me? Chen Yutian, do you want to die? We don't know who's going to die yet. Yutian said indifferently. The humiliation from that day, I'll wash it away today. Head Chen, you see, your grandson is the one who wants to die. We didn't kill him. Yu Feng said to Kuanglan. You know the rules of the arena. Life and death are decided by the heavens, and there's no need to pursue this matter. Kuanglan was surprised by Yutian's sudden appearance, and even more so by his sudden challenge to Yu Feng. But as far as he was concerned, his grandson wasn't that impulsive, and Yushu was here as well. How could he just watch Yutian walk to his death? There had to be something he didn't know, but he still said, This is Yutian's decision, I support him. Alright, let's go to the arena next door. Shueixing, on the other hand, wanted to see what Linny was up to, but in order to prevent them from playing any tricks, he spoke up first. Chen Yutian, since you're the one who issued the challenge, you should go up, right? You won't find someone to replace you, will you? To be honest, Shueixing was really afraid that Yutian would find Lin Yi to replace him. And so, he blocked Yutian's escape route and continued. Don't say that Lin Yi is your sister's boyfriend, that he's part of House Chen too. No need, I'll take my revenge with my own hands. Yutian looked at Shueixing with disdain. Alright, you're asking to die, so don't blame anyone else. Shueixing said. As long as Lin Yi didn't go up, everything would be fine. Yutian was a cripple, and even if he wasn't in a wheelchair, he was only a mystic early phase, 2 levels lower than Yu Feng. Yu Feng could easily beat him up. There's no need for the arena, we can settle it here. Yutian said. Ha ha ha, do what you want, but don't say that I'm bullying you. You're just a piece of trash in my hands, and you still are. Yu Feng laughed as he walked towards Yutian, but his laughter stopped abruptly. Because he saw Chen Yutian, who was sitting in the wheelchair, stand up. Yu Feng's eyes widened. Wasn't Yutian disabled? Wasn't he in a wheelchair? How could he stand up? Yu Feng pointed at Yutian in disbelief. Aren't you disabled? Who told you that disabled people can't recover? I just got out of the hospital, can't I? Yutian looked at Yu Feng mockingly. Then, why are you in a wheelchair? Yu Feng felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't pinpoint it. After all, no matter how strong Yutian was, he was only a mystic early phase. And that was before he was injured. Even if Lin Yi had some miraculous medicine that could heal Yutian's wounds and restore his strength, he was only an early phase mystic class master. Even if he broke through during this period of time, he could only be a peak early phase mystic class master. There was still a gap between him and Lin Yi. What was there to be afraid of? However, Yu Feng had an indescribable sense of foreboding. He felt that this matter was a little too strange. Oh, I was in a wheelchair every day in the hospital, so I'm used to it. Yutian stretched his body. Suddenly standing up makes me feel a little lightheaded. So the doctor told me to do some recovery training. But they're using you. Target =_ blank. Chapter 1704. Are you messing with me? Wow, bro. You're so pretentious, but not as good as Shield bro, Yushu complimented. Yutian was about to say of course, when he heard the second half of his sister's sentence. He almost fell back into the wheelchair. But thinking about it, it was normal that he wasn't as strong as Lin Yi. If he was stronger than Lin Yi, why would he call Lin Yi his boss? Chen Yutian said proudly. That's right, I wanted to make some entrance music, just like in dramas. Too bad I came in a rush, and didn't have time to prepare anything. That's right, I didn't have time. Fuck, Chen Yutian. Don't think that you can beat me now that you're out of the hospital. You're just an early phase mystic class. You're dreaming if you think you can beat me. Yutian and Yushu's words completely infuriated Yu Feng. He was ignored, and this made him furious. Who told you that I'm still an early phase mystic class? Yutian asked back. Yu Feng, there's something wrong with your brain. You're not an early phase mystic class. Are you at the peak of early phase mystic class? Yu Feng froze. No. Yutian shook his head. Then you're still an early phase mystic class. Are you messing with me? Yu Feng was stunned by Yutian's words, and his embarrassment turned into anger. He wanted to charge at Yutian. Chen Yutian, I think you're here to die. Feng, wait. Shueixing felt that something was wrong. Yu Feng was hot-headed, But Shuaixing wasn't hot-headed. He felt that something was wrong. No matter how stupid Yutian was, he wouldn't come here to die, would he? Could it be that this kid had some dirty tricks up his sleeve? After all, from Shuaixing's perspective, it was impossible for Yutian to increase his strength. But he might have a trump card. Otherwise, why would he dare to provoke him like this? What, Shuaixing? Are you going back on your words and breaking the rules you set yourself? Grudges and grudges should be settled with strength? Grandpa Chen Kuanglan saw that his grandson was full of confidence, and his granddaughter was also very normal. Although he was puzzled, he understood his grandson and granddaughter better than anyone else. Chen Yutian was a little impulsive, but he wouldn't do something so stupid. Plus, he had Yushu by his side. How could Yushu let Chen Yutian die? Especially that mysterious Lin Yi. Elder Chen had heard of him a long time ago. Although he was Ming Yao and Shu's bodyguard on the surface, what he did wasn't something a bodyguard should do. Killing a master from House Yu and crippling a master from House Yu? Was this something a normal bodyguard would do? Plus, that wasn't all. Wasn't the hidden house pie powerful? Lin Yi still got rid of one. And his follower Er Gooden got rid of two. House pie didn't even dare to fart. Wasn't that suspicious? If this wasn't amazing, then Jin Wudi and his disciple Ma Zhu from the Golden Bell sect were both killed by Lin Yi and Er Gooden. This was a miracle. Jin Wudi was a master of the Golden Bell shield, and even Earth-class masters had to be careful of him. Yet he was killed by Lin Yi's follower in one punch. What kind of level was this? And so, Chen Kuanglan thought of all these miracles, and it was as if he'd taken a stimulant. He started shaking all of a sudden, sweeping away the darkness and pressure from before. He'd thought it through. Since his grandson was so confident, he'd go crazy with him this time. House Chen was about to fall, and with Lin Yi's help, he might be able to turn the situation around. Shuaixing paused at the change in Chen Kuanglan's attitude, but it was fine if he didn't say it. Now that he said it, Shuaixing felt more confident. He wasn't as old as Chen Kuanglan, but his eyes were sharper and sharper. One look, and he saw the hidden worry and madness in Chen Kuanglan's eyes. It seemed like this old thing was worried as well. And Chen Kuanglan probably didn't know about what Yutian had done today. This meant that Yutian had acted on his own, or Chen Kuanglan wouldn't have that expression on her face right now. Taking a step back, if House Chen had really prepared beforehand, then Chen Kuanglan wouldn't have been forced to this state at the start. If that was the case, then what was there to be afraid of? Perhaps Yutian wasn't willing to give up, and came to get revenge as soon as he recovered. Or maybe he learned some tricks from Lin Yi, and thought he was strong enough to challenge Yufeng. From Shuaixing's perspective, if Yutian really had absolute confidence, there was no way Chen Kuanglan wouldn't know about it, and House Chen wouldn't be so passive this time. Of course, this was only what a normal person would think. Shuaixing neglected the fact that Lin Yi had a deeper intention, and that was to destroy House Yu. Yutian's revenge on Yufeng was just a prelude, a warm-up. The real show was yet to come. But this was something Shuaixing couldn't have foreseen. How could he know that Lin Yi was already in Earth class? Of course not. I just have some things that I need to make clear. Shuaixing said faintly as he looked at Chen Kuanglan. Before the challenge, I'm sure you understand the rules of the arena, right? Life and death are up to the heavens, and no one can be held accountable? Of course. Chen Kuanglan felt a little guilty after hearing Shuaixing's words, but he still tried to act tough. What's there to say? We're all from noble houses, of course we know this. Yutian knows this as well. That's good. Lil Feng, don't go easy on him, be careful of his dirty tricks. Shuaixing nodded, hinting to Yufeng. He wanted him to kill as soon as possible, so that Yutian wouldn't have a chance to make a comeback. Shuaixing, on the other hand, saw the flash of worry in Chen Kuanglan's eyes, and this made him feel more at ease. It seemed that Chen Kuanglan didn't have confidence in Yutian either. He was thinking too much. Shuaixing thought. No problem. Chen Yutian, I didn't kill you last time, but I won't go easy on you this time. Since you're here, you should be prepared to die. With that, Yufeng's hands turned into palms, slapping towards Yutian. Lin Yi saw this move, but Lin Yi shook his head. The difference between Mystic and Earth class wasn't just a little bit. It was a dividing line. And that wasn't wrong at all. Upon reaching the earth rank, one could learn martial techniques. And only with martial techniques could one be called a true cultivator. In the past, he'd only been a beginner. But now that Lin Yi was an earth-class master, Yufeng was nothing more than a beginner. Hashtag. Chapter 1705. Was this a dream? Yutian's lips curled into a cold smile as he channeled his own practitioner's arts, pushing out his palms as well, wanting to use the same move to meet Yufeng's attack. Watch out, Feng. Shuixing felt Yutian's strength in that instant, and at the same time, he couldn't help but blurt out, "Careful." But it was too late. The two's palms collided in an instant, and it wasn't an exaggeration to say that Yufeng was sent flying by Yutian the moment Shuixing's words left his mouth, crashing into the white wall of the meeting room. The force of the impact created a human-shaped hole in the wall, with blood stains all over it. Mystic mid-phase and Mystic late-phase peak were two completely different fighters. If they'd been fighting with techniques, Yufeng wouldn't have lost so badly, but Yufeng had chosen to fight head-on. He'd listened to Shuixing's words and wanted to kill Yutian right off the bat, but he hadn't expected the opponent's chi to be so strong that he'd been sent flying. Everyone was dumbfounded, including Chen Quanglan and the other heads of the noble houses. They stared at Yutian in disbelief. House Chen's Yutian was a nobody at first, a small golden class early phase. It wasn't until recently that he made a name for himself, but it was an ironic one. People said that he was trying to steal Yufeng's woman right after he broke through to the early phase of Mystic class, and that he was heavily injured and crippled. But no one would have thought that Yutian would become a Mystic late phase peak and appear at the noble house meeting like this. Now, even an idiot would know that Yutian came prepared, and that he wasn't just hot-blooded. Of course, these people were just shocked and envious, but Elder Chen was shaking with excitement. He remembered what Yutian said to him on the phone a few days ago. "Grandpa, I will be your pride." But he had done it. What did a Mystic late phase peak mean to House Chen? Chen Quanglan knew it all too well. This was a top noble house, and only house you had won. In other words, the rise of the Chen family was no longer a dream. Chen Quanglan wanted to laugh out loud. Her name was really good. Chen Quanglan had truly turned the tide. At the Chen family's most critical moment, her grandson had turned the tide for her and raised the Chen family's morale. Xiaofeng. Shuixing stood up abruptly, roaring in anger. "Chen Yutian, you're a Mystic late phase peak? How dare you trick me?" "I'm cheating?" Yutian smiled. "When did I say that I'm not a Mystic late phase peak? Did I say that? I'm just saying that I'm not at the early phase of Mystic class, nor am I at the peak of the early phase. You and your son are stupid, thinking that I'm weak." Yutian's question froze Shuixing's face. Yutian didn't say that he wasn't a Mystic late phase peak. It was a misunderstanding. But when Yu Shuixing saw Yufeng covered in blood, he had the urge to kill Chen Yutian. But now, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Shuixing really couldn't do anything to Yutian. The noble house meeting had its own rules, and if House Yu were to break the rules, how could they continue to be the leader in the future? With that thought, Shuixing decided to check on Yufeng's injuries first, and then find a chance to wipe out House Chen. Of course, he couldn't do it now. Not only could he not do it, but he had to be generous and let House Chen continue to be a noble house. That was the only way to show House Yu's generosity and selflessness. As for taking revenge on House Chen after that, he just had to do it in secret and not let others criticize him. Humph. Shuixing humphed coldly at the thought. He stood up and walked towards Yufeng, intending to check on Yufeng's injuries when he heard Lin Yi's faint voice. "Since House Yu said that his life and death is up to the heavens, then you can send him to hell." Lin Yi looked at Yufeng and said to Yutian, "Because your name is Chen Yutian, that's why your life and death is up to the heavens." "Haha, shield bro, you're so talented." Yushu was amused by Lin Yi's words. Yes, Yutian didn't plan on letting Yufeng. If it weren't for Lin Yi's help, he would have had to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. There was no way he would let Yufeng go so easily. And so, Yutian answered and flew towards Yufeng. Shuixing and Yutian were both Mystic masters, and both of them were at the peak of the late phase of the Mystic class. Yutian was closer to Yufeng, and so naturally, he reached Yufeng's side first. Yutian raised his foot, stomping down on Yufeng's left leg. The crisp sound of bone breaking was especially ear-piercing in the quiet meeting room, making Shuixing's heart tremble. Brat, don't you dare. You're looking to die. Yufeng has already lost, and you still want to kill him. But Yutian acted as if he didn't hear Shuixing's words. He raised his foot again, and stomped down on Yufeng's right leg. Another crisp crack sounded, and Yufeng's right leg broke as well. Yufeng was finally woken up by the intense pain. But it was only for a split second before he fainted again with a howl of agony. Looks like the head of the Yu house is quite agitated. Shanshan, go talk to him, tell him to calm down. Lin Yi said to Lingshan. Alright. Lingshan didn't say anything, and went to block Shuixing's path, stopping him from getting close to Yutian. At that moment, Lingshan's mystic late phase peak was on full display, and Shuixing's steps froze. Another mystic late phase peak? Shuixing looked at Lingshan in disbelief. He never would have thought that mystic late phase peak would become so worthless all of a sudden. These kids from noble houses who didn't show their strength before were all mystic late phase peak now. At that moment, Xiangwen's face turned red with excitement as well. House Chen's Yutian had become a mystic late phase peak, and all he could do was envy and jealousy. But this time, if House Chen was lucky enough to survive this, then the next unlucky ones would be House Song. He didn't think that his granddaughter would become a mystic late phase peak as well. This was too shocking. His granddaughter had just broken through to mystic early phase not too long ago. And now she was a mystic late phase peak now? This span and this leveling speed gave Song Xiangwen a surreal feeling. Was he dreaming? #target=_blank. Chapter 1706. Chapter 1707. Another Earth class, however. What happened next proved to Song Xiangwen that he was not dreaming. Head you, you're the one who said that life and death is up to the heavens. Please don't break the rules of the noble house meeting. Lingshan hated Yufeng to the bone, and naturally wouldn't let Shuixing interfere. Song girl, do you really think that just because you're a mystic late phase peak like me, you're on the same level as me? Shuixing smiled coldly as he looked at Lingshan. I can tell just by looking at your skills. You've only just reached mystic late phase peak, and haven't stabilized it yet. It'll be too easy for me to beat you. However, as Shuixing spoke, Yutian broke Yufeng's left arm with a stomp. Shuixing's heart clenched as he threatened again. Don't force me to break a flower. Wu Qintian. Lin Yi could tell that Lingshan wasn't a match for Shuixing alone. After all, Shuixing was a mystic late phase peak, and he'd stabilized his strength a long time ago. Lingshan, on the other hand, lacked battle experience. She might really be at a disadvantage here. And so Lin Yi decided to let Qintian handle Shuixing. Go help him. Yes. Qintian stood up from the wheelchair with a whoosh, his whole body displaying the strength of a mystic late phase peak, and a physical practitioner. One mystic late phase peak isn't enough. Would another mystic late phase peak be enough? Qintian's strength shocked everyone once more. The first two mystic late phase peak masters were already hard to accept. But Qintian was a dual practitioner, a mystic late phase peak. This made everyone feel like their heads were about to explode. Ha! Gong Gao stood up abruptly. Haha, I knew it. Qintian wouldn't disappoint me. Ha 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 ha. He's a mystic late phase peak, and a physical practitioner now. House Wu will have nothing to worry about now. Truth be told, Shuixing was confident in taking on a newbie like Lingshan, but two mystic late phase peak? That wasn't something he could handle, let alone one who was a practitioner of both body and spirit. Lingshan and Qintian stood beside Shuixing, one on the left and one on the right. They'd attack him if he made any sudden movements. Crack! Yufeng's right arm was broken by Yutian as well. This made Shuixing's mouth twitch a little, but there was nothing he could do. Yutian and three mystic late phase peak masters. How could he fight them? Unless Chen Yutian didn't stop after breaking Yufeng's limbs. He kicked Yufeng out of the meeting room's window with a whoosh. This was the highest floor of House Yu's auction house. Yufeng flew out of the window, and if he landed on the ground, he'd definitely be smashed into meat paste. It wouldn't be a problem if he was conscious, but he was unconscious right now, and he'd probably die if he fell. Lin Feng. Shuixing didn't expect Yu Tian to be this ruthless, kicking Yu Feng out of the window. He wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Shuixing saw Yu Tian abuse Yu Feng, and he thought that the guy was just venting his anger, not taking his life. After all, if he wanted to kill Yu Feng, all he had to do was stomp on his head. Shuixing was angry, but he wasn't too worried. At least Yu Feng's life wasn't in danger, and as long as he was alive, he'd have his revenge one day. He didn't expect Yu Tian to do this all of a sudden. What he didn't know was that Yu Tian was giving Yu Feng a taste of his own medicine. Yu Tian had been kicked out of the window like this back then, just that it wasn't this high. Wah! You're looking to die, brat. Shuixing was completely furious. He didn't expect Yu Tian to be so ruthless. But he didn't know that he wanted Yu Feng to kill him back then, didn't he? Shuixing's eyes were bloodshot as he looked at the broken window. He knew that his son wasn't going to make it out of this alive. Falling from such a high place, without any chi to protect him, he'd die for sure. Shuixing took a deep breath, and quickly took out a pill from his pocket, throwing it into his mouth. In an instant, the chi around Shuixing's body exploded, and he went from mystic late phase peak to earth class early phase. What? Earth class early phase? Chen Kuanglan, Xiangguan, and Gonggao were all taken aback. They'd never seen something as strange as this before. With just one pill, Shuixing went from mystic late phase peak to earth class early phase in one go. Ha 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 ha, you didn't expect this, did you? Since you've killed my son, then none of the families that participated in this shall leave this place alive. Shuixing seemed to have gone mad as he laughed at the sky. House Chen, House Song, House Wu, House Lu, you shall all die with my son. This was Shuixing's trump card, as well as his ultimate weapon. This was a pill that could instantly increase one's strength and potential. But it was an evil pill that came at the cost of one's lifespan. This pill was made by the Everyday and Everyday sect, and Yu Shuixing had gotten it from the Hidden House Yu. No one in the Hidden House Yu would use a pill like this that would damage their strength. So giving one to Yu Shuixing wasn't a big deal. After all, this pill had side effects. A normal person could instantly become a golden class after using it, and a golden class could become a mystic after using it, and so on and so forth. But the price was huge. A normal person had to pay 5 years of lifespan to become a golden class, and a golden class had to pay 10 years to become a mystic. A mystic, on the other hand, had to pay 30 years of lifespan. As long as they didn't step into sky class, a practitioner's lifespan was the same as a normal person's. They might live a little longer than a normal person, but not by much. As a result, 30 years of lifespan was fatal. How many years did a person have in their life? One pill reduced 30 years of lifespan, and how many 30 years could a person have? And because of the exhaustion, a normal person would be fine, but a practitioner would drop from mystic to golden class after the effect wore off. Depending on how much energy was used up, the practitioner would drop from mystic to golden class early phase. How could someone from the Hidden House Yu use such a huge side effect? Hashtag target equals _ blank. Lin Yi had been an assassin before, and his psychological analysis was even better than Shuixing's. He could tell that Shuixing was lying just by looking at his eyes. You don't need to deny it. I have 2 friends. One is Yang Huaijuan, injured by your house Yu, his meridian's broken, and he almost lost his life. The other is Armadillo. We don't know if he's alive or dead. What's the point of saying all that? If you want to punish us, then show me your strength. Shuixing didn't admit or deny it. It wasn't a big secret that House Yu did some shady things under their glamour, after all, and the other noble houses knew a little about it. Otherwise, Huaijuan wouldn't have been able to trace the clues back to House Yu so easily. Yang Huaijuan, what happened back then? Was it your House Yu's doing? Elder Yang Daocha stood up abruptly, glaring at Shuixing. What happened to Huaijuan was a huge blow to House Yang. But they hadn't been able to find the culprit after all these years. But with Lin Yi's words, Elder Yang naturally understood what was going on. I didn't say anything. Shueishing wasn't afraid of Elder Yang at all. He huffed coldly. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me who else was involved, and I'll make sure your house you isn't destroyed. Lin Yi walked towards Shueishing, his voice lifeless, as if it came from hell. Why would I remember something like that? What's the point of saying so much? Winner takes all. And if he's injured or dead, it can only be said that he's not strong enough. Shueishing said. Fine, then you can die now. Lin Yi shook his head in disappointment. Actually, I don't feel any sense of accomplishment beating a fake Earth class like you. Shueishing paused. He was about to say that Lin Yi was boasting when Lin Yi's aura burst forth. Shueishing's eyes went wide as he felt the pressure. You're an Earth class early phase. Yeah, that's why I said that beating a fake Earth class like you doesn't feel any sense of accomplishment at all. Lin Yi shook his head. Shueishing's expression changed. To be honest, he never would have thought that Lin Yi was an Earth class. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used the pill to forcefully raise his strength to Earth class early phase. After taking the pill, he would enter a state of madness. For a moment his strength would be stronger than a real Earth rank early phase. Then, he would be weakened for a month. He would become weaker and weaker until he regained his original strength. Then he would start to drop levels. But at this moment, he was the strongest. However, facing a true Earth class like Lin Yi, Shueishing instinctively lost his confidence. He didn't know if he could beat Lin Yi. You were just a mystic mid-phase peak before, and now you're an Earth class early phase? You must have used some unorthodox methods to get to that level. We're not that far apart. We don't know who's going to win yet. Shueishing gritted his teeth. He couldn't back down now. He could only press forward. Kid, give me your life. But after saying that, Shueishing didn't charge at Lin Yi. Instead, he turned and charged at Yutian. Before dealing with Lin Yi, Shueishing decided to kill Yutian first. This way, no matter who won or lost, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1708. Earth Class Technique Frenzy Fist. Lin Yi was an assassin, and his eyes and speed were much better than normal practitioners. How could Lin Yi not understand Shueishing's intentions when he saw him suddenly attack Yutian? Lin Yi had wanted to use Shueishing to practice, but it seemed like that wasn't going to work. Lin Yi's first move was an Earth Class technique. This Frenzy Fist was a technique Faubert had practiced before. There were only the first 3 forms, but it was more than enough for Lin Yi right now. The first 3 forms were prepared for early phase Earth class masters. These few days, Lin Yi had been practicing Frenzy Fist by himself, but it was his first time using it against an enemy. Shueishing's face froze. He didn't think that Lin Yi had practiced a technique. One had to know that the biggest difference between Earth class and Mystic class was the training of their techniques. Shueishing was an Earth class fake, and he had relied on elixirs to force his way up. How could he have learned any techniques? At most, his strength had reached the early phase of Earth class, or with the help of the elixirs, he could temporarily reach the peak of the early phase. If it was a clash of pure strength, Lin Yi might not be Shueishing's opponent, but it was a different story with techniques. Martial skills were different from ordinary martial arts. Before reaching the Earth rank, the internal martial arts masters relied on condensing their Zhen Qi into their fists and feet. They relied purely on the amount of Zhen Qi and its tyrannical degree to attack the enemy. However, techniques could bring out the full potential of Qi. To put it bluntly, it was turning Qi into a form, much more domineering than pure Qi. Shueishing was from a noble house, and naturally, he'd heard of techniques. Only freelancers like Lin Yi hadn't heard of them before. But now that the newcomer had caught up, a normal Frenzy Fist was enough to make Shueishing feel like he was facing a great enemy. He couldn't care less about attacking Yutian anymore. And after hearing Lin Yi's roar, he panicked and dodged, moving away from Lin Yi's attack range. However, after Shueishing ran away, Lin Yi's fist didn't reach him. Lin Yi was still standing where he was, and this made Shueishing confused. Didn't Lin Yi use an Earth class technique? Why did it look like nothing had happened? Sorry I failed. Lenny sweated. Since Faubert wasn't in Earth class, he couldn't demonstrate it himself. So Lenny had to figure it out himself. This was his first time in battle, and he'd fail if he wasn't careful. You're messing with me? Shueishing subconsciously thought that Lenny didn't know any techniques, and was just bluffing to scare him. Holy hall. No, I just reached Earth class not long ago, and I just learned this new technique. I'm not too familiar with it, so I couldn't use it. I'm sorry. Lenny said apologetically. Stand there and don't move, I'll use it again. See if it works. Fuck. Do you think I'm an idiot? Shueishing was pissed off by Lin Yi's words. Did Lenny think he was a 3-year-old? Stand there and don't move? Wait for him to hit me. But Lenny didn't waste time with him. He suddenly pushed out with both fists, yelling, Frenzy fist! Shueishing was so scared that he ran away from where he was standing, faster than a mouse. Hiding on the side, Shueishing subconsciously looked at where Lenny was attacking, but realized that Lenny still hadn't used any techniques. Lenny stood where he was, and the place Lenny attacked didn't seem to be damaged at all. Lenny, you're messing with me? Shueishing was completely enraged. He believed that Lenny had just learned the technique, and wasn't familiar with it yet. So he hadn't used it yet. But he didn't use it the second time? Wasn't this bullshit? How could Shueishing believe this? Anyone else would suspect that Lin Yi was just trying to scare him. I'm not messing with you. I really didn't use it. Lin Yi wasn't lying to Shueishing. Lin Yi didn't have a target before, so he'd been practicing the techniques in his jade space. It was his first time using it against an enemy, so he'd made 2 mistakes. You're looking to die. Shueishing raged. Wait, it'll work this time. Lin Yi said before roaring at Shueishing again. Frenzy fist. Shueishing didn't really believe it, but he still subconsciously dodged to the side. Lin Yi was a cunning bastard. What if he really didn't use it before and used it again? Unfortunately, Lin Yi didn't use it this time. Shueishing was once again being played like a monkey. This time, however, Lin Yi was truly playing him. Lin Yi didn't plan on using Frenzy Fist at all, and after 2 failed attempts, Lin Yi gave up on using Frenzy Fist and started compressing the energy bomb. To tell the truth, Lin Yi felt a bit helpless when he switched to this move. It was his only trump card, and it was a bit pitiful. He'd used it from Golden Class to Earth Class, but he was still using it. Lin Yi couldn't wait to find some new trump cards, but the stone door to the 2nd floor wasn't open yet. The first layer of the Art of Dragon Mastery had been studied by Lin Yi to its fullest, and he couldn't find anything else he could use. And so, Lin Yi could only start compressing the energy, preparing to use Oscillation Fist to attack Shueishing. Of course, he didn't show it on his face as he tricked Shueishing. Who the hell would believe you? Shueishing humphed as he raised his fist at Lin Yi. Brat, I'll pay with my life today. Lin Yi had already started compressing the energy in his body, but it wasn't enough time for him to hurt anyone. He could only raise his fist to meet Shueishing's attack. Bam! The 2 fists collided in midair, creating a loud sound. This was the sound of chi colliding between 2 Earth-class masters. Lin Yi took 2 steps back, while Shueishing didn't move an inch from where he stood. Lin Yi's face flushed red, then paled as a trickle of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Puffed. Lin Yi spat out a mouthful of blood, shocking the people who'd thought highly of Lin Yi. They didn't think that Lin Yi, a true Earth-class early phase, wouldn't be able to defeat Shueishing, a pseudo-Earth-class early phase who'd relied on medicine. In fact, Shueishing was burning his own life force in exchange for strength. In the early stages of the pill's effect, Shueishing was able to maintain his Mystic Class early phase peak, which meant that he was only 1 step away from Mystic Class early phase peak. Target equals _blank. He'd failed 3 times already, and he still wanted to try? And he wanted to change to a new martial skill. Did he think martial skills were that easy to learn? Shueishing may not have practiced martial skills before, but he knew how difficult it was. His big brother, Yu Huashing, was an Earth class, but he still hadn't found a suitable martial skill, let alone Lin Yi. Yes, this is called oscillating fist. Lin Yi said, come receive my attack. I'll receive it right here. Let's see what you can do to me. Shueixing laughed, not putting Lin Yi in his eyes at all. It wasn't that he was arrogant, but he didn't believe that Lin Yi could use any martial skills at all. If he could, Lin Yi would have used it a long time ago. Why would he wait until now? Normally speaking, who would use a half-baked martial skill to face an enemy first, and then use the one they were familiar with? Wasn't that insane? As far as Shueixing was concerned, Lin Yi's so-called second martial skill was either a lie, or it was even worse than the first one. It was a useless bomb. Lin Yi's chi bombs were usually used to win by surprise. If he were to face an enemy, and the enemy was a prepared opponent, then Lin Yi wouldn't be able to win by surprise. After all, Lin Yi's chi bombs were slow to compress, and they were troublesome to release. He had to aim at the enemy, and if the enemy dodged, then all his efforts would be wasted. It could be said that Lin Yi's previous chi bombs were all used by surprise, when the enemy wasn't prepared. Shueixing, on the other hand, was different. Judging from Lin Yi's previous failures, Shueixing was a careful man. This was a bit like Boss Yu, and so when Lin Yi used his chi bombs, he had to use some tricks. If Shueixing dodged it, then it'd be troublesome. Shueixing and Lin Yi were both Earth class early phase, and Shueixing was a bit stronger. Lin Yi didn't have much confidence in fighting him head-on, so he had to use some tricks. Self-created Earth class technique, oscillating fist. Lin Yi said as he put his hands together, slowly pushing them towards Shueixing. Of course, Lin Yi didn't actually use the energy bomb this time, because the time was too short, and Lin Yi hadn't finished compressing it yet. Lin Yi also wanted to see if Shueixing was really going to stand there and take the attack, or if he was just saying it. The results proved that Shueixing really didn't dodge this time. He stood where he was, looking at Lin Yi mockingly. Self-created technique? Who do you think you are? You're an ancient heavenly class? He could even create his own martial skills? Aren't you embarrassed to say that? Don't tell me you just created it on a whim, and then failed again, because you're not familiar with it? I didn't create it today. I did it a few days ago. Lin Yi replied honestly. I did fail, but you said it's because I'm not familiar with it yet. I'll just try again. Shueixing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't tell me you're trying to stall for time? You want to try again? Are you waiting for the effect of the pill to wear off before you attack me? Ugh. No. Lin Yi shook his head. I don't care if you are or not. I'm not afraid to tell you that the effect of my pill needs a month to wear off. If you have the guts, then stay here and use your technique for a month. Let's see if you can do it. Shueixing smiled coldly, as if he'd seen through Lin Yi's thoughts. I really don't. Lin Yi shook his head, and with the same hand gesture, he sent out the energy bomb he'd just condensed. Earth-class technique, oscillating fist. Shueixing curled his lips, about to say something to mock Lin Yi, but the next moment, he felt a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas striking his chest. Chapter 1710. Shueixing was startled and tried to dodge, but it was too late. Lin Yi's chi bomb hit his chest with a loud boom. Shueixing felt as if his chest had been hit by a landmine, and the huge force was pushing him away. Shueixing wanted to stay where he was after exchanging punches with Lin Yi. How embarrassing would that be if he were to fly away? But Shueixing's thinking was too simple. It wasn't as simple as losing face anymore. The explosion sent Shueixing flying away in an instant, and since he'd been standing where he was, trying to take the blast head-on, he was in an even worse state now. The explosion was even more severe than before. If he'd flown away with the initial blast, he'd only be injured at most, since Lin Yi's bomb didn't have a lot of chi in it. Lin Yi had only condensed a mid-sized bomb, and it would only be able to lightly injure Shueixing. Lin Yi could then take advantage of the situation, But because of Shueixing's resistance, he became the center of the explosion, and the huge force blew a hole in his chest. His sternum was blown to smithereens, and his organs were all a mess, turning into a pile of bloody meat. Shuaixing didn't even have time to scream before he fell to the ground, killed by Lin Yi's bomb. There was a huge hole in his chest, and blood was still flowing out. It was a frightening sight. Holy Church! Holy Church! This dramatic turn of events caused everyone present to be dumbfounded. They'd gone from having high hopes for Lin Yi at first, to not having high hopes for Lin Yi later on, and now Shuaixing's tragic death. It had all happened so quickly that they weren't used to it. Of course, these people were shocked, but Lin Yi was even more shocked. How did Shuaixing die just like that? His true qi bomb had clearly blown him away at most. At most, it would have injured him slightly, but it would not have killed him. As long as Shuaixing was injured, as long as Lin Yi dealt with him properly, he'd have a chance of killing Shuaixing. But Shuaixing didn't dodge, he just stood there, gritting his teeth and got himself killed? He's dead. Lin Yi walked over and looked at Shuaixing on the ground. He couldn't be more dead. There was a huge hole in Shuaixing's chest, and his heart had been smashed to smithereens. It would be a miracle if he could survive like that. Lin Yi's words brought silence to the arena. No one dared to criticize Lin Yi right now. Even if Lin Yi's question was a little funny, no one thought it was funny. Shuaixing had been killed by Lin Yi, and that was a fact. Who would dare piss Lin Yi off at a time like this? Jiang Wen had been paying attention to Lin Yi ever since he entered the arena, and it was only now that Lin Yi had killed Lin Yi that he let out a long sigh, knowing that his loss wasn't unjust. Lin Yi was an Earth-class early phase, and dealing with the fake Lin Yi was a piece of cake. Plus, he'd underestimated this opponent too much. At first, Jiang Wen thought that Lin Yi was just a random bodyguard. From his perspective, Lin Yi wasn't on the same level as the noble houses, and he only needed a few tricks to deal with him. But today, after seeing Lin Yi's power, Jiang Wen understood that if he wanted to deal with Lin Yi in the future, simple tricks wouldn't be enough. He'd need something even stronger. It's all over. Lin Yi sighed. It was a little regretful that he didn't manage to get the pangolin's whereabouts. But Lin Yi understood that even if Shuaixing hadn't died, he wouldn't have remembered about the pangolin. In his eyes, the pangolin was just a small character. Why would he pay attention to something like that? So with Shuaixing's death, Lin Yi could see it as revenge for the pangolin. Lin Yi walked quickly to the meeting table and sat on the main seat that Shuaixing had been sitting on. He looked around at the heads of the houses. These people were getting goosebumps from Lin Yi's stare. They all lowered their heads, not daring to meet Lin Yi's eyes. Only Elder Lu Zhenhu nodded at Lin Yi in a friendly manner. The atmosphere in the meeting room became a little strange. Everyone was here to participate in the noble house meeting. But now that House Yi was dead, there was no point in holding the meeting anymore. However, no one dared to stand up and leave. Who knew if Lin Yi would suddenly attack them? He even dared to kill Shuaixing. What was there left to do? For big houses, 5 small houses, only 8 left now. Lin Yi looked at the people at the table, his eyes finally landing on Dr. Kang's face. Dr. Kang had long since lost his composure. He felt like he was sitting on a bed of needles. He and Lin Yi could be considered old enemies. He'd started a feud with Lin Yi during the birthday banquet, and he didn't doubt that Lin Yi would kill him on the spot. Dr. Kang, why are you still sitting here? Scram. Lin Yi said faintly as he looked at Dr. Kang. I'll leave now. Dr. Kang stood up as if he'd just been pardoned. He brought Kang Guifeng with him, ready to leave. He didn't even think about leveling up to a noble house anymore. Being able to keep his life was already a blessing. Wait, take your Xiao family with you. You can all scram. Lin Yi pointed at the 2 Xiao family brothers. Xiao Ji and Xiao Ben were Lin Yi's old enemies. But even the hidden house pie didn't dare cause trouble for Lin Yi. What right did they have to question Lin Yi's words? The 2 of them looked at each other and stood up dejectedly. Jiang Wen, I don't need to call names, right? Lin Yi looked at Jiang Wen and in Mingyue's direction. Lin Yi, we've always had a pretty good relationship. Did you forget that you were the one who gave me ideas to pursue Meng Yao? Jiang Wen asked, putting on a fake smile. From today onwards, the 4 big houses and 5 small houses will become history. Lin Yi didn't answer Jiang Wen's question. The old noble house structure no longer exists. I need to reorganize it, but Jiangwen, I don't want to bring you along. It's fine. Housen isn't good at practicing. When we were a noble house, we were just there to make up the numbers. Since Lin Yi says so, then we'll leave. Jiangwen understood that a wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. He stood up and prepared to leave. To be honest, Jiangwen didn't really care about being a noble house. What Housen was doing was helping the firewolves, so it didn't matter if they were a noble house or not. Chapter 17:11. House Kong, Xiao family, and In family left the meeting room. Other than the dead House Yu, only House Chun, House Song, House Lu, House Wu, House Yang, and House Sun were left. Chapter 17:13. From today onwards, the title of noble house is gone. Does anyone have any objections? Lin Yi looked at the heads of the noble houses. No. Lu Zhenhu was the first to agree. He knew that the title of noble house was useless now. What happened today would soon spread out, and the leader and judge of noble houses, House Yu, would become a joke in history. These noble houses were all chosen by House Yu. And now that House Yu was gone, what noble house was left? The houses that were close to Lin Yi, even without the title of noble house, were still powerful. On the other hand, the houses that were enemies with Lin Yi, like the three that just left, were destined to lose their former glory, even if they still had the title of noble house. Of course not. The era of House Yu is over, and us old guys should step down. House Wu will be in charge of Chintian from now on, and I'm going to focus on my training. Wu Gonggao was a sly old fox, and he knew that his grandson recognized Lin Yi as his boss. It didn't matter if House Wu was still a noble house or not. They wouldn't be at a disadvantage. And so Wu Gonggao agreed with Lin Yi. Saint, I'm fine with it too. Chen Kuanglan followed. House Chun will be in Yutian's hands. I heard that you and Huaijuan used to be teammates? Of course, the Yang family agrees. Yang Daocha also expressed his opinion. You're Shanshan's boyfriend, right? Then we're a family, of course. I'll leave Shanshan in your care from now on. And we House Song hope that you can help us as well. Song Xiangwen was even more sly, guessing the relationship between the two from the moment Lin Yi and Lingshan entered the meeting room together. That can't be, right? Old Song, he is obviously my Jingyi's boyfriend. How did he become your Shanshan's boyfriend? Old Master's son heard Song Xiangwen's words and immediately became unhappy. Previously, he was very dissatisfied with Sun Jingyi's private boyfriend. Although he heard that Sun Jingyi's boyfriend was a wandering cultivator and a mystic stage master, he only agreed to let Sun Jingyi bring Lin Yi to meet him when Lin Yi agreed to marry into her family. But now, Old Man's son had met Lin Yi, and it was under such circumstances. As for the so-called son-in-law, Old Man's son didn't want to mention it. Now even a fool could see how popular Lin Yi was, and how useful he was to these families. Now all the noble houses were showing their goodwill to Lin Yi, and Lin Yi had already become the core existence that replaced House Yu. So elder son didn't want to be outdone. Before, he wanted Sun Jingyi to see if there were any young men in the noble house meeting. Wasn't this Lin Yi a young man? The young man was right in front of them. How is that possible? Shanshan, tell me, is your boyfriend this Master Lin Yi? Xiangwen asked Lingshan. Jingyi, isn't he the boyfriend you were talking about? Elder son didn't back down. Lingshan and Sun Jingyi, on the other hand, were blushing. Neither of them were Lin Yi's girlfriends. Lingshan was pursuing Lin Yi, and Sun Jingyi was pretending. How were they supposed to answer this? I'm Shield Bro's small wife. Plus, Shield Bro has 3 wives, 2 big wives and 2 small wives. What are you two fighting for? What are you two fighting for? They're just queuing up. Yushu said. Ha. Both Song Xiangwen and Old Man Sun were stunned. They didn't know why Lin Yi called him Shield Bro. But the person Yushu was talking about was most likely Lin Yi. And Lin Yi already had 4 wives? His granddaughter had to queue up? Xiangwen frowned at the thought. How could House Song's granddaughter be someone else's small wife? She had to queue up. Elder son, on the other hand, had the same thought. He looked at Jingyi suspiciously. Man, It's good to have a granddaughter of this age. I want to marry my granddaughter to Lin Yi, but there's none. Wu Qintian sighed. His words were like a wake-up call. Song Xiangwen, an old master's son, immediately came back to their senses. Yes, Lin Yi was an earth class. He was on the same level as the masters of the hidden houses. Marrying his granddaughter to him wasn't a bad thing. And now, it seemed like Lin Yi had replaced House Yu as the strongest force among the noble houses. Although he was only one person, he wasn't alone. He had a few followers, and they were all heirs of the noble houses. Fine, I'll queue up first, Xiangwen said quickly, afraid that he wouldn't even have the chance to queue up. Why do you have to queue up first? House Sun isn't that bad either. Elder Sun wasn't happy. All right, you two old masters, stop fighting. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Was he the hot commodity now? But Lin Yi didn't come here to find a wife. He wanted to build up his own force. And so Lin Yi waved his hand to stop the two. Shanshan Jingyi and I are good friends. As for relationships, let's just let it be. Let's not talk about it for now. What I want to say today is that the noble houses are cancelled, but I'm preparing to set up a practitioners' association. I want to invite all the noble houses to participate. What do you all think? I've already said that Chuntian will be in charge of House Wu from now onwards. I won't participate. Gonggao said immediately. No matter what Lin Yi suggested, he would agree. Gonggao wasn't an idiot. Chuntian went from a golden class to a mystic late-phase peak spiritual practitioner. He wouldn't believe it if he said that it wasn't because of Lin Yi. And so, House Wu naturally agreed with Lin Yi's decision. Behind Gonggao, Wu Qingdi, on the other hand, had a look of disappointment in his eyes. Ever since Chuntian revealed his mystic late-phase peak strength, he had been disappointed again and again. The gap between him and Chuntian was too big. He would never be able to catch up to Chuntian. But he didn't want to accept it. Why was Chuntian so lucky? How did he get to meet such a good boss like Lin Yi? How did he get his strength? Why did all the good things belong to Chuntian? Ever since he was young, whether it was in House Wu or outside, it was the same. Chapter 17:12. And so, Chundi was deeply dissatisfied, but he knew where he stood. He could only lower his head and keep quiet. Holy Halchundi didn't understand why Chuntian was so lucky, and why was fate so unfair. He wanted to turn things around, but under the current circumstances, he could only swallow his anger and pretend to be happy, with a fake smile on his face. House Chen naturally has nothing to say. Yutian has grown up, and will let him make the decisions. Chen Kuanglan was very happy today. This sudden change made him realize that his grandson had not only grown up, but most importantly, he had met a benefactor. He could finally relax. House Song's boy hasn't grown up yet, but Shanshan can still make the decisions for now. Song Xiangwen expressed his support as well. Even an idiot could tell that Lin Yi's Cultivators Association was similar to the noble houses of old, just with a different name. As long as one was a member of the association, they would still be like a noble house in the future. And with Lin Yi's protection, it would be even more glorious than before. And the number of practitioners and strength would increase. We don't have any objections. We don't have practitioners, but if Miracle Dr. Lin doesn't mind, we're willing to join as well. Zhenhu smiled. Miracle Dr. Lin has a good relationship with my boss, Lu Tianyi. I'm sure there won't be any problems in communicating with him. House Yang has no objections. We'll let Yang Huaijuan make the decisions in the future. It's time for me to retire, Yang Daocha said. Now only House Sun was left. Although the old man of House Sun was in favor of the idea, when the families expressed their stance, they sent a person who could maintain their relationship with Lin Yi. In other words, it was the spokesperson of the family in the Practitioners Association. In fact, it was equivalent to the existence of the head of the family. However, Elder Sun couldn't decide who to let take on this role. Although Sun Jingyi's surname was Sun, she didn't have the same surname. She was different from Song Lingshan. The male heir of House Song was too young to take on the role, so he let Song Lingshan take the role temporarily. However, the two males of the Sun family weren't young anymore. If Sun Jingyi were to play this role, there would be no reason to replace her in the future. This put old Master Sun in a difficult position. For a moment he couldn't make a decision. He looked up at Sun Jingyi. Sun Jingyi had roughly guessed her grandfather's difficulties, but she didn't care about it. She didn't want to control the Sun family. So he smiled and said, "Ikai, haven't you met Lin Yi and got along well with him? In the future, you will be responsible for contacting the Sun family. There are too many things in my company. I don't have time." Sanctuary. Okay. Sun Ikai was overjoyed. He didn't think that Sun Jingyi would speak up for him. In fact, with his position in House Sun, it was quite awkward. There was a big brother above him, and he was a straightforward person. He wasn't suitable to be the head of the house. However, with one sentence from Sun Jingyi, the awkwardness was solved. "Sun Ikai, this is the third time we meet, right?" Lin Yi smiled. "Yes, what should I call you in the future? Brother-in-law?" Sun Ikai smiled. It was funny when he thought about it. When he first met Lin Yi, he said that he would protect Lin Yi and make Lin Yi look for him if there was any trouble. But in the blink of an eye, Lin Yi had replaced House Yu and became the #1 practitioner in the common world. "Just call me Lin Yi," Lin Yi said lightly. "Your sister is a smart person. I'm just her shield. When there's trouble, she looks for me. When there's nothing, she doesn't look for me. It seems like I'm fated to be a shield bro." Lin Yi's words made the atmosphere lighten up. Everyone finally understood why Yushu called Lin Yi shield bro. So this was what she meant. "Then, I'll call you boss like Chintian and the others." Sun Ikai decided to be the same as everyone else. Since Chintian and Yutian were calling him that, then he should be calling him that. "Huh." Lin Yi smiled. "Actually, the reason why I set up this guild is simple. It's to unite everyone. And I'll help someone in your family level up quickly. I believe you've all seen the changes in Chintian, Yutian, and Lingshan's strength. But each family only has one spot. We'll consider adding more in the future." Lin Yi could only help his confidence level up. Naturally, Lin Yi wouldn't use the art of dragon mastery on anyone else. It was a matter of loyalty, and if word got out, it'd be bad for his own safety. Everyone suspected that Lin Yi had something to do with Chintian, Yutian, and Lingshan's sudden increase in strength. But hearing it from Lin Yi's own mouth was still shocking and regretful. Each family only had one spot. This meant that only Chintian, Chen Yutian, Lingshan, Huaijuan, and Sun Jingyi could receive Lin Yi's help. As for House Lu, they didn't have any practitioners yet, so they didn't think too much about it. The one who felt the most regretful was Sun Ikai. He knew that Lin Yi would definitely give the spot to Sun Jingyi. Out of all the representatives, only his situation was special. But it didn't matter. Lin Yi said that he could add more spots in the future. This meant that he still had a chance. Looking at the excited faces, Lin Yi continued. "Actually, I'm sure you all know who I am. I'm a doctor, but my other identity is a refiner. This is also why I can help people level up so quickly. But my energy and level are limited. I can't do it all the time." Lin Yi attributed his art of dragon mastery to the fact that he was an elixir refiner. His identity as an elixir refiner had already been exposed once when he was hiding in House Tang. So it wasn't a big deal. After all, elixir refiners were rare, but it wasn't a big deal. But if Lin Yi said that he could transfer pure qi to others, it'd be a big deal if word got out. Lin Yi was afraid of being captured and used as a lab rat. But a refiner was different. There was no point in capturing one, because any practitioner with a brain would know that not everyone could become a refiner. There was no point in capturing one. Moreover, there was an unwritten rule in the Jianghu. An alchemist's status was a notch above others. No family or sect would kidnap an alchemist and force him to refine pills for them. This was equivalent to breaking the rules of the Jianghu. Now that House Yu had been replaced by Lin Yi, they didn't lose anything at all. Instead, they gained even more benefits, especially if they could make friends with Lin Yi, an Earth-class early-phase alchemist. This was a good thing no matter what. In a hotel not far from House Yu's auction, the two brothers from family Xiao and House Kang's Dr. Kong, as well as Kong Guifeng, sat there. Although the two houses had some conflicts and disagreements before, they were all in the same predicament now. They sat together, ready to discuss their future plans. Originally, they wanted to rope in Housen, but Mingyue and Zhang Wen clearly had no interest in participating in their business. It was as if the title of a noble house wasn't important to Housen. In fact, this was also the case. These aristocratic families wanted the title of an aristocratic family, so that they could get the attention of other aristocratic families when doing business. However, the Yin family's business was the kind that couldn't be seen in the light. Having the title of an aristocratic family made them a little more fearful. So without the title of a noble house, they didn't really care. House Xiao and House Kong, on the other hand, were different. House Kong desperately wanted to enter the ranks of the noble houses, because they were an alliance led by House Yu. They helped each other, and only then would they be able to do well in each other's territory. Now that family Xiao was kicked out of the noble house circle, they couldn't count on the other noble houses to take care of them anymore. Although they had the support of the hidden house Pai, those who had the support of Lin Yi wouldn't give the Xiao family any face. It would be hard for them to develop in the future. And so, Xiao Ben pulled Xiao Ji along with him, and started to sit with Dr. Kong and Kong Guifeng, the two slightly unhappy people. Lin Yi, even the hidden house Pai can't do anything to him? Looking at Xiao Ji and Xiao Ben, Dr. Kong asked helplessly. He knew a thing or two about what happened between Lin Yi and the Xiao family. He knew that 3 people from House Pai died. But they didn't do anything to Lin Yi. He didn't understand. This Lin Yi might have a big background behind him. The hidden house Pai warned us not to mess with Lin Yi. But now it's a situation where we have no choice but to mess with him. Xiao Ji humphed. After being forced by him, our Xiao family's business, which had just started to get better, is going to be finished. We can only retreat back to Songshan. And this is Lin Yi's base. Yeah, you guys are making money for the hidden house Pai. Now that something like this happened, they can't just ignore you, right? Kong Guifeng asked. Alright, let's not talk about this for now. Xiao Ben was a smart man. He waved his hand and didn't answer Kong Guifeng's question. He knew that Kong Guifeng wanted him to go get revenge on House Pai. But House Pai had already expressed their stance on this. Although it affected House Pai's profits, Xiao Ben still didn't have the confidence to make House Pai help. He wanted to test House Kang's trump card. I say, House Kong, this time you want to become a noble house, so you've prepared well, right? What's your bargaining chip to become a noble house? You don't need to be so guarded against me. I want House Pai to help, but this reason isn't enough. Something that doesn't benefit them is something that a hidden noble house wouldn't do easily. You understand? Alright, if that's the case, then I'll tell you the truth. Dr. Kong said. Do you remember the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing? Of course I remember. What's wrong? Xiao Ben asked calmly. House Kong is currently researching the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. If we can get rid of the obstacle that is Lin Yi, we can work together. I believe that with the recipe in our hands, even the hidden noble houses will respect us. Dr. Kong said. Chapter 17:14. Oh, so you've developed it already? Xiao Ben asked, surprised. Not quite there yet. Dr. Kong shook his head. But you can tell the hidden house Pai that I'll give them priority once we've developed it, as long as they support us. That's good. I'll ask the hidden house Pai for their opinion. Xiao Ben sighed. But I can't promise anything. Alright. We've had some misunderstandings in the past, but now we should let bygones be bygones and work together. That's the only way we can fight against Lin Yi's alliance. Kong Guifeng said. That marriage between our two families. I think we can continue with it. Kong Guifeng was thinking further. If Xiaolong were to marry Xinyan, that would solidify his position in House Kong, since House Kong and Xiao family's interests were intertwined. It was undeniable that a marriage was a huge bargaining chip. That's something I can consider, but we'll talk about it after we get through this. Xiaoben didn't decline. It was just a marriage between a niece with a different surname and House Kong, after all. He couldn't be too calculative with House Kong right now. Moreover, if the Kong family really managed to develop the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, then their status would skyrocket. The effects of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing were practically on par with the legendary bone cleansing and marrow cleansing pill. In actuality, the bone cleansing and marrow cleansing pill was called the Greater Foundation Establishment Pill, and the Lesser Foundation Establishment Pill. The pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, on the other hand, seemed to be even more effective than the Foundation Establishment Pill. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been sold at such a high price in the auction. The Foundation Establishment Pill could only refine one's body, and it couldn't extend one's lifespan. The pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, on the other hand, could do the trick. Heart, alright, the bigger picture is more important. Dr. Kong nodded. Our House Kong will be waiting for your good news. At the same time, something big happened in Songshan. Sihua brought his men to the orphanage and reported the matter to Zhao Qibing after the discussion with the headmaster broke down. Qibing wasn't feeling too good right now. He'd lost a couple $100 million to Bloodcloak Yellow Springs sect for no reason. He couldn't afford to offend them, but a small orphanage wasn't something he would put in his eyes. Sihua, take Boss Zhu with you and burn that orphanage down. Damn it, I'm giving them face but they don't want it. This time, I'll make them lose everything. Zhao Qibing slammed the table angrily. He really felt suffocated. Ever since he came to Songshan, other than getting a qi-gathering pill for House Zhao, he had accomplished nothing else. Holy Church becoming the head of the hidden house, Zhao wasn't something that could be achieved with just one qi-gathering pill. One had to have other abilities, and so Qibing had been earning money nonstop. Yes, Sihua nodded. Then I'll bring some men to prepare. Do it cleanly, don't leave any evidence behind. Qibing said. Remember, burn it cleanly, burn all the houses in the orphanage. If they can still live after the fire is extinguished, it'll be hard to do it again. Don't worry, Master Bing. I'm good at this. Sihua patted his chest and promised. How about this? You get ready. I'll light the fire myself. Qibing had a fire in his heart that he hadn't vented yet, and he wanted to light the fire himself to vent it. No problem, I've prepared everything. Master Bing, you just need to light the fire, Sihua said. And so, on a dark and windy night, Qibing brought Sihua and Boss Zhu to the orphanage. There was a large amount of gasoline in the back of Sihua's pickup truck, prepared to burn the orphanage down. Very well, this is a good day. The weather is dry, the moon is dark and the wind is strong. It's a good day to set a fire, Qibing said. Boss Zhu, go pour the gasoline, pour as much as you can. The bigger the fire, the better. No problem. Boss Zhu got out of the car and jumped into the orphanage with a huge barrel of gasoline. Boss Zhu was an Earth-class master, and the orphanage's director and Xiaoka naturally wouldn't be able to sense his presence. So Boss Zhu went back and forth a few times, pouring all the gasoline into the orphanage and the surrounding fences. Everything's ready, Master Bing. You can light the fire now, Boss Zhu said. Well done. Qibing got out of the car with a torch in his hand, and with a whoosh, he threw it into the orphanage's yard. He then took a few more torches from Sihua and threw them all into the orphanage. The inside of the orphanage was instantly set ablaze. Haha, I'm leaving after I'm done. Qibing clapped his hands and said happily. Setting the orphanage on fire today made him feel a lot better. Before, he was bullied by Lin Yi's follower, Wu Qintian, and he couldn't take revenge. Although his broken leg was healed by Elder Bai, the incident with Bloodcloak and Yellow Springs sect made him want to die. Today, with the release of the fire, the depression in his chest had finally dissipated by more than half. Qibing and Boss Zhu got in the car, and Sihua stepped on the gas, and the truck disappeared into the night and the fire. Such a big fire. The orphanage will be destroyed tomorrow for sure. Sihua said as he looked in the rearview mirror. This is too good. No wonder there are so many stress-relieving amusement parks. People go and destroy them. It's so fun. Qibing said excitedly. I really want to burn another house. Ha! When the head of the house comes out, we'll go burn Lin Yi's villa. Sihua said. We'll get even with him then. Fuck, no wonder Linny likes to tear down my skyscraper, it's so fun. Qibing said regretfully. I can't tear down a skyscraper, it'd be fun too. Qibing and the others returned to the floating cloud bar, and quickly fell asleep in excitement. The orphanage, on the other hand, was extremely busy. The first one to notice something was wrong was Xiaoka. She was depressed, but she had been sleeping late these past few days. She was sure that she was lovesick, and the image of the male thief kept appearing in her mind, causing her to have insomnia. In the middle of the night, she dreamt of the male thief, and when she woke up, she saw the fire outside her window. She jumped in fright and rushed out of her house, only to find that the yard and the roof were on fire. Chapter 17:16. The building is burned too? Xiaoka couldn't care less about the things in her room anymore. She quickly went to wake the dean up. Oh no, there's a fire. School Beauty's Bodyguard Chapter 17:16. The dean was a light sleeper, and was woken up by Xiaoka's voice. She was shocked when she saw the situation outside. Quick, go save the children. And so, Xiaoka and the dean quickly rushed into the children's dormitory. Fortunately, both of them were descendants of the Fian sect. Although they were in a sea of fire, they could always find a place to stay. The two of them risked their lives to rescue the children in the orphanage. Behind them, the orphanage was already a vast sea of fire. The wind was strong today, and the air was dry, so the fire was out of control. From the orphanage, it was already spreading to other areas. After saving the children, Xiaoka finally reacted. Yes, let's call the fire department. The orphanage is going to burn. In the rush, the dean didn't bring her phone, and the orphanage was right next to the construction site of the slums. On the other side was the business district, but the shops were all closed at night, and it was hard to find a single person. The dean looked around for a long time before finding a public phone booth to call the fire department. But by then, the fire had already spread to the construction site of the slums next to the orphanage. By the time the piercing sound of the fire engine sounded, the fire was already out of control. Although a number of fire trucks came to support, due to the strong wind and the large fire, there were a lot of flammable items piled up on the construction site of the shanty town, such as wooden cubes and the like. As a result, the fire grew bigger and bigger. It was not until dawn that the fire was extinguished. Qibing, Sihua, and Boss Zhu, on the other hand, had a good night's sleep. When they woke up the next morning, Qibing couldn't wait to get Sihua to turn on the TV. Quick, look at the new. The orphanage is probably in ruins now. Haha, that's for sure. Sihua nodded and turned on the TV. The three of them sat on the sofa, ready to watch the destruction of the orphanage. Around 1 in the morning, a huge fire broke out in the orphanage near the old slums. When the firefighters arrived, the fire was already out of control, and it started to spread to the construction site nearby. After the firefighters' hard work, they finally extinguished the fire at 7 this morning. But the orphanage, as well as the newly built Qibing skyscraper, were all burnt to ashes. Following the news, there was a scene of the orphanage and Qibing skyscraper being burnt down. Gah! Qibing heard the news and jumped up with a whoosh. He looked at the news in disbelief. Impossible! How is this possible? My skyscraper. Sihua and Boss Zhu had a bitter look on their faces as well. They didn't think that burning the orphanage would burn down the Qibing skyscraper next to it. And the most important thing was that the newly built skyscraper hadn't even been used for a day. Who can tell me what's going on? Qibing kicked the TV angrily, shattering the LCD TV. It fell to the ground, creating sparks. But Qibing didn't care. How much was a TV? What he cared about now was the Qibing skyscraper. This skyscraper had been destroyed twice since it was built. The first 2 times were caused by Lin Yi, but the third time, he burned it down with his own hands. This, Master Bing, we didn't know that it would affect the Qibing skyscraper next to it. Sihua was troubled as well. I just followed your instructions and found a weather that would be easy to set fire to. Master Bing, I'm just following your orders, pouring the gasoline, Boss Zhu said with a bitter face. Neither he nor Sihua were experts in this field, nor did they have any experience. How was Sihua supposed to calculate the intensity of the fire? Boss Zhu, on the other hand, couldn't have predicted that the intensity of the fire would affect the Qibing skyscraper. It's not your fault. Qibing waved his hand helplessly and sat on the ground. He should have given more money to the orphanage, or built a new one somewhere else, if he knew this would happen. But it was too late for regrets now. Although Qibing's goal was achieved, the price he paid was too high. Sihua was hoping to earn more money from this project, to pay back Bloodcloak Underworld. But it seemed like it was all for naught now. Sihua had a bitter look on his face all day long. But compared to Sihua and Qibing, the orphanage was the most difficult. The orphanage was gone, and the dean had no choice but to bring the children to a cheaper duplex loft. Hundreds of children were squeezed into a 300 square meter room. And it wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was a squeeze. Xiaoke had gotten a lot of money for the orphanage a while ago, but it wasn't enough to rebuild the orphanage. After all, they couldn't rebuild the orphanage with the old bungalows, could they? They had to make it more presentable. Xiaoke's money was reserved for the orphanage's daily expenses. If she took it out from the bank and used it to rebuild the orphanage, it wouldn't be enough. What would they do after the money was used up? The treasures Xiaoke brought out were only worth around 5 million. 5 million was fine if it was just for the simple construction. But it wouldn't even be enough to buy the necessary equipment if they had to build the facilities. This fire must have been set by someone from Zhao Qibing's company, but they didn't set it up properly and burned their own company nearby. Ken said angrily, "They deserve it, they deserve it. I'm guessing that Sihua will come to us again to discuss the swap. And this time, we'll have to do it even if we don't want to." The dean sighed helplessly. "We really can't afford to offend the hidden house Zhao. If it were back then." Sigh. What the dean wanted to say was that if it were back then, she wouldn't even care about a small hidden house. But now, the hidden Zhao family was a colossus to her. But Xiaoke only knew a limited amount about what happened back then. And the dean didn't want to talk too much about it. She didn't want her enemies to come and ruin their peaceful life. Chapter 17:15. No. The dean and Ken interrupted Xiaoke's thoughts at the same time. You already escaped death last time. Aren't you just looking to die if you go again? Then what should we do? We can't have a bunch of people here, can we? They sleep together every night. It's hard to even turn around, Xiaoke said worriedly as she looked at the horrible environment. It's so hot. I'm afraid the kids might get heat rash. Xiaoke sis, maybe you should go look for Lin Yi bro again. Ken hinted. Didn't he bring a bunch of donations to the orphanage last time? That was already the limit. Most people have already donated money. How can we make things difficult for them again? Xiaoke shook her head. Plus, my relationship with Lin Yi isn't that good. He seems to look down on me. I don't want to trouble him. Look down on him? I don't think so. Ken thought. Look down on you and still go save you? How was that possible? This was a bit troublesome. He'd promised Lin Yi, but he couldn't tell Xiaoke. He could only hint at her, and she wouldn't understand. Xiaoke's right. We can't always trouble other people. We need to think of a way ourselves. Well, Amos nodded and said, he helped us once before. How can we trouble him again? Oh, Ken nodded, thinking that he should find a chance to call Lin Yi and ask him if he had any ideas. It seemed like Xiaoke sis was going to marry him in the future, so it was only right for him to do something for the orphanage now. Otherwise, how could he bring home the goddess of the orphanage? Now the ones with the biggest headache were Qibing and Sihua. They didn't have the mood to negotiate with the orphanage anymore. It was the same as looting a burning house. and giving the police something to use against them. Of course, this wasn't the main thing. The main thing was that Qibing's new building was burnt down, and he couldn't help but curse his bad luck. Ever since he started his business, he hadn't done anything successful. His real estate business had been failing from the start. Luckily, Elderbai didn't care much about external things, and Sihua took all the responsibility, so Elderbai didn't blame Qibing. After all, as far as he was concerned, Qibing was focused on practicing now, leaving the company to his underlings. This was his underlings doing out of goodwill, but it had nothing to do with Qibing. After the noble house meeting, Lin Yi and Yushu returned to Songshan. According to Lin Yi's promise with them, he was going to bring them to Starwest Village for a trip in August. Holy Church, Yutian, Lingshan, and Chuntian, on the other hand, went back to their houses. The situation in the noble houses had changed, and they needed to go back and discuss countermeasures. In actuality, as Lin Yi's strength increased, so did his view of the world. Although his last sentence was almost a threat, meaning that if Lin Yi didn't help, he would tell Xiaoka his identity. But Lin Yi didn't dislike it at all, because Qin wasn't doing this for himself. He was doing this for the orphanage, just like Xiaoka. Shield bro, what's wrong? Can you talk to Shu about it? Yushu asked when she saw the frown on his face. Zhao Qibing, that idiot, burned down the orphanage and his new building. He's really looking for trouble. I think he needs a beating, so he's looking for trouble. Lin Yi shrugged. That's right, I'm looking for trouble. Lin Yi shrugged. Seriously? Burned again? This guy is really unlucky. Yushu subconsciously stuck out her tongue when she heard that Qibing's building was destroyed again. Was this guy a jinx? Otherwise, ordinary people wouldn't be so unlucky, right? Chapter 17-18. Thank you for your hard work. His bad luck is secondary. The key is that the children in the orphanage don't have a place to stay anymore. They're all living in a 300 square meter attic. And it's so crowded. Lin Yi said. How much does it cost to rebuild an orphanage? Lin Yi said. How much does it cost to rebuild an orphanage? I'm not sure about that, but if it's our land, we'll only have the construction fees left. Shield bro, you can ask Fatty Lai. Wasn't he a professional in construction? Yushu reminded. Okay, I'll ask him. Lin Yi said and called Fatty Lai. Boss, you're back. Fatty Lai was one of those who was well informed. He had heard the news of House Yu's downfall, and that House Kang's application to become a noble house had failed. This made him even happier. With this, House Kang had even less of a competitive edge. House Lai's status would rise, and Lai Changyi's name would become more and more famous. After all, he was Ling Yi's follower. Lai Changyi had long expected that he would have such a day. Now, he had an advantage over any noble house, because he was one of the first followers of Lin Yi. Not yet, it's on the way. Lin Yi said. There's something I want to ask you. I want to build an orphanage. If we have the land, how much does it cost? Fatty Lai paused. He didn't understand why Lin Yi asked this, but he still answered honestly. Building an orphanage depends on the type of building. If it's a larger scale, it'll be comparable to a school. For example, those orphanages in big cities have dormitories, activity rooms, libraries, and so on. Some even have their own kindergartens, elementary schools, and middle schools. If we build all of these together, it'll cost at least 100 million. Of course, if we buy all the necessary facilities, it'll cost at least 200 million. That much? Lin Yi was surprised. Of course, if it's just a normal orphanage, providing food and lodging for the orphans, a few million would be enough, Fatty Lai said. The key is what kind of building you want it to be, boss. If we want to build it, we'll do it in one go and build it better. Lin Yi listened to Fatty Lai's price and felt a headache. 200 million? How could it be so much money? But thinking about it, if it was as Fatty Lai said, and all the facilities were built, the entire orphanage would be comparable to a small university. It would indeed require a lot of investment. But Lin Yi wasn't willing to just build it the same way it was. Actually, we don't need that much. We can do it step by step and build it slowly. Don't invest in the unnecessary things like the computer center, library, and gymnasium for now. If we just build the dormitory and canteen, a few million will be enough. If we have our own land, we won't even need this money. Fatty Lai said, but the beds, tables, and other facilities will add up to 5 million. Do you have any money left? Linny asked. I can definitely take out a few million. If it's too much, it'll affect the company's operations, Fatty Lai said. Forget it, I'll think of something myself. Linny spent 100 million when he participated in the Ice Palace's trial, and it made Fatty Lai's side a little tight. The medical company was still developing rapidly, and it wouldn't work without money. Boss, I'm really ashamed to let you think of something yourself. Fatty Lai was a little embarrassed. It's okay, I understand your difficulties. Linny was thinking about where he could get 200 million. Although he could borrow from any noble house, it would still make people think that Linny was extorting them. Linny thought about it, and thought about the old man. He went on missions a few years ago, and earned a lot of money, right? Even if it wasn't a few hundred million, it was at least tens of millions. Linny felt that he should ask the old man for some money. He called the old man's number, and old Lin's lazy voice came from the other side. Little E, what's the matter? Is everything done over there? Yes, it's all done. I'm calling to borrow some money from you, Linny said. Borrow money? No, old Lin said straightforwardly. No. Where did the money I earned from the missions I did go? Don't tell me that I only earned tens of yuan from one mission. Linny heard old Lin's words and found it funny and annoying at the same time. I didn't want to argue with you before, but I really have something to do now. Wait, I'll send you something. Old Lin didn't answer Linny's question and said, Oh. Linny wanted to ask something, but old Lin had already hung up. Not long after, Linny received a message on his phone. He opened it and saw a photo of a bunch of receipts. Linny zoomed in and took a closer look. They were receipts for donations and remittances. Seeing this, Linny was silent. It seemed that old Lin had donated all his money to charity all these years. Thinking about how stingy old Lin was at home, Linny felt a little sour in his heart. He used to misunderstand this old man, thinking that he was a stingy person who didn't spend money, and even made him work part-time to weave straw sandals for money. But now it seemed that old Lin really didn't enjoy anything at all. As for the money used to raise Lin Yi, it was most likely all from the money he earned from his medical practice in the village. Moreover, his treatment was almost free, and he only earned a little from buying medicine. It wasn't easy for him to raise Lin Yi with this kind of income. Linny sighed and quietly called back. Did you receive it? Old Lin asked straightforwardly. Yes, it's been hard on you all these years, Linny said. Haha, it's nothing. Old Lin laughed and said, What do you need money for? It's similar to what you're doing. I have an orphanage here that caught fire. I want to rebuild it, and I want to build it into a first-class orphanage, Linny said. So I'm in urgent need of money. I see, Old Lin said. Do you still want to carry out missions? This is faster to earn money. If you want, I can help you keep an eye out. Sure. Linny gritted his teeth and agreed. Help me keep an eye out. If there are missions, help me introduce them, but it's best not to go too far. I'll help you take a look. There might not be any. If there is, I'll contact you again, Old Lin said. Chapter 17:16. Oh, Shield Bro, you're taking on a private job? Isn't your job to protect me and Yao Yao? Yushu asked. Not really, I've already resigned last time. We're just good friends now. Linny smiled. I see. Looks like I can't stop you. Be careful then. Yushu said helplessly. She was actually worried that Lin Yi would be in danger. Last time Lin Yi went to the tomb, he almost died. If it weren't for that boss you being a coward, Lin Yi wouldn't have come back so easily. Yushu was really worried that something would happen to Lin Yi. I will, Linny said. Before I came here, I always took on missions like this. Lin Yi comforted Yushu like that. But he knew that the missions he took on before weren't that high-leveled, so the money wasn't that much. A mission like this with 100 million reward was probably on a different level. It would be even more dangerous. The hidden house you received the news immediately after the common house you was annihilated. Yu Huasheng was going crazy with rage. He didn't think that Lin Yi would be this daring to actually wipe out the common house you. He stormed over to the hidden house Yu's head, Yu Xiaochen, and said in grief, "Head Yu, please help us, the common house Yu. With regards to this matter, I beg you to uphold justice for us. We, the common house Yu, have been helping the hidden house Yu earn money, and yet we ended up like this. You must help us, the common house Yu, get justice." "Alright, I got it. Yu Huasheng, I'm sorry for your loss. I need to understand the ins and outs of this matter before discussing it with my father." Yu Xiaochen comforted Boss Yu. That Lin Yi is an Earth class and we, the hidden house, are restricted by the Noble House Council. Earth classes can't come out as they please, so it's not easy to deal with Lin Yi. But that Lin Yi is an Earth class. Isn't he restricted by the Hidden House Council? Yu Huasheng felt that it was unfair. St. Hall, he's a freelancer, and in the past, there were no precedents of freelancers reaching Earth class. Mystic was already very powerful, and most of them relied on the hidden houses when they were at Mystic. Lin Yi is a special case, Yu Xiaochen said. I'll discuss the specifics with my father first. Yes, Yu Huasheng sighed sorrowfully. He didn't think that House Yu would be destroyed so soon after he left. This was like a bolt from the blue. How could he stay calm? He wanted to tear Lin Yi into a million pieces right now. But when he remembered that Lin Yi was also an Earth-class early-phase master, and that he knew martial arts, he backed off. Revenge was important, but staying alive was even more important. Yu Huasheng's Lin Huasheng's heart, Huasheng's Yu's heart Lin Xiaochen Chunqing. Xiaochen was actually quite annoyed as well. There was a saying that went, "Look at the master before beating the dog." This Lin Yi had challenged the hidden house Yu's bottom line time and time again. First, he'd killed one of the common house Yus, and now he'd sent the father and son of the common house Yu to heaven. This was intolerable. But, while he wanted to kill Lin Yi as soon as possible, he didn't show it on his face. After all, this was a huge matter, and he couldn't just make a decision on his own. He had to consider the hidden house's entire benefit. If they really wanted to deal with Lin Yi, and got impeached by the Hidden House Council, then it wouldn't be worth it. And so, Xiaochen drove up the mountain to find his father, preparing to discuss with him on how to deal with this. On the mountain, it was still Yu Yi who brought Xiaochen to the Elder Yu's training area. "Xiaochen, you're here." The Elder Yu looked at Xiaochen and nodded. "Father, Yu Huasheng came to me just now. He wants us to help them," Xiaochen said. "And I know about this. It's all because of that Lin Yi." The Elder Yu nodded and said faintly, "But read this letter first." "Oh, what letter?" Xiaochen paused. He wasn't surprised that his father knew what was going on outside. Although Xiaochen could be said to have complete control over House Yu, the old ancestor still had a lot of confidence in House Yu. These people were Yu Yi's eyes and ears, and the old ancestor's information came from them. Of course, as long as Xiaochen didn't do anything wrong to House Yu, these people would naturally listen to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be of much use as the head of the house. This was also why Xiaochen always went to the Elder Yu to discuss with him whenever something big happened. But the old Yu suddenly asked him to look at a letter, and this made Xiaochen suspicious. He took the letter from the old Yu's hands and started reading it. It's a letter from Yu Bing? Xiaochen was surprised. He knew the rules of the Ice Palace, and the new outer disciples didn't have the right to communicate with the house as they pleased. But Yu Bing didn't have this restriction. It seems like Yu Bing is doing quite well in the Ice Palace. The Elder Yu praised. If it weren't for Ning, Yu Bing would be the best candidate to be the head of House Yu. Father Ning Xiaochen didn't know much about Yu Ning either. He only had a rough idea. And the old ancestor of House Yu would never go into details. This was also why he felt that Yu Bing should be the next head of the house. "I can't tell you that. It's related to the big secret of House Yu's rise," the Elder Yu said. The time isn't right yet, so I can't tell you in detail. The big secret of House Yu's rise? Yu Xiaochen frowned. Isn't Xiao Ning supposed to accept some kind of inheritance? But what kind of inheritance is it? Is there hope? Isn't it something you saw in the ancient ruins? Is it really effective? Ancient ruins? That's just what I told others. It's not true at all. The elder Yu waved his hand and passed another letter to Xiaochen. The one you saw before was for Ning. It's just a casual conversation between siblings. There's no need for Yu Bing to lie. But this is the one Yu Bing asked Ning to pass to us. Oh. Yu Xiaochen quickly took the letter from the elder Yu and started reading it. This letter was a lot more formal than the previous one. Yu Bing first greeted the elders of the house, and then described what happened in the test. But he didn't mention anything about Yu Shan framing him, or Lin Yi. After that, Yu Bing changed the topic, saying that Yu Huaxing actually got a qi-gathering pill, but didn't give it to House Yu, but took it for himself. Yu Bing was very sure that the source of this information was very accurate. There was someone in the test who could prove this, but he didn't say who it was. Are you done? The elder Yu asked. I've read it already. The thing that Yu Bing said. Xiaochen wasn't surprised that the two letters were in the hands of House Yu's old ancestor. On the surface, House Yu was under his control, but in reality, the old ancestor was in charge of most of the things. It should be true. There's no need for him to lie, and Yu Huaxing doesn't have any conflict of interest with him. The elder Yu said, but it's true that he's friends with Lin Yi, and if we don't go against House Yu because of this, we won't go against Lin Yi. This is probably the reason why Yu Bing brought this up. The elder Yu's eyes were very sharp. He noticed the secret behind it immediately. I see. Xiaochen realized. He didn't even think about the deeper reason. Then this Lin Yi. This Lin Yi is a genius, a freelancer, and he became an Earth-class early phase in just a few years. This is unbelievable. The elder Yu said. He had just broken through to Mystic late phase during the test. And now he's an Earth-class early phase? This is a rare talent. You're right, father. Xiaochen didn't think that his father would praise Lin Yi like this. But from what he could see, this Lin Yi wasn't simple at all. He was able to wipe out the common House Yu. And now he was able to beat Yu Shuixing who had taken the pill. This was the same as skipping levels. It's a shame that we don't have the ability to recruit Lin Yi. The elder Yu sighed. With Ning's relationship, there's no way Lin Yi will be of use to us, unless Ning marries him. Why can't I? Xiaochen paused. Lin Yi is so young, and he's already an Earth class. This is rare even in the hidden houses, let alone a freelancer. The inheritor must be a virgin girl, or she won't be able to accept the inheritance. The elder Yu said. This is also why I stopped Ning from dating. These young people, if they act rashly, the consequences will be unimaginable. This is an order from our House Yu's backer. Ning can't be in a relationship. So that's how it is. Xiaochen understood. If Ning can't marry Lin Yi, then we really don't have the ability to recruit Lin Yi. But we don't have to be enemies for now. Elder Yu said. The Grand Elder of the Hidden Houses Arbitration Council hasn't shown himself in a long time. And the others are getting restless and ready to break the rules. But before they break the rules, we House Yu can't be the first bird. Oh, the other hidden houses want to break the rules as well? Xiaochen asked. Chapter 1717. I see. Yu Xiaochen nodded. Yu Bing's letter gives us an excuse not to stand up for House Yu. Naturally. Elder Yu nodded. I'll leave these two letters to you. Give one to Ning. Tell her to come visit me when she's free. I want to have a good talk with her. You know what to do with the other one, right? Understood. I'll go look for Yu Huaxing right now. Xiaochen said. Yu Huixing was overjoyed to hear that Yu Xiaochen was looking for him so quickly. Thinking that House Yu was going to help the common House Yu, he quickly came to Yu Xiaochen's room and spoke respectfully. House Yu, may I ask what the elder said? Are you going to avenge our common House Yu? After all, we've been working hard all these years, helping the hidden House Yu earn money. We've been handing over most of it. Huixing, it's not that I don't want to help you. But how can we help you with what you've done? Xiaochen's face was dark. Do you think that we, the hidden House Yes, are idiots? Ah. Yu Huixing paused, not understanding what Yu Xiaochen was talking about. House head. What? What do you mean? Yu Huixing asked nervously. What do I mean? Take a look at this letter yourself. With that, Yu Xiaochen tossed Yu Bing's letter to Yu Huixing. Other than greetings to the family, it also talked about Yu Huixing. There weren't any secrets that he couldn't let Yu Huixing. Letter? What letter? Yu Huixing looked at Xiaochen's face and had a bad feeling. He carefully took the letter from Xiaochen's hands. But he was a little surprised. This was a letter from home. What did it have to do with him? It seemed like it was from one of House Yu's juniors. Yu Huixing looked at the signature and saw that it was Yu Bing. He was even more surprised, but he still read it patiently. After all, Xiaochen wouldn't just give him a letter for nothing. There had to be a reason. But when Yu Huixing read that Yu Bing didn't hand over the qi-gathering pill, his face changed drastically. He didn't understand. How did someone know about this secret back then? I saw the news a few days ago. Weren't the couple, Blackie, and the other grave robbers caught in one fell swoop? Who else knows about this? But no matter what, this matter was exposed, and Yu Bing's tone was very certain. This meant that he had solid proof, and Yu Huixing couldn't deny it. If Yu Bing had used a maybe or guess tone, then Yu Huixing would have had some room to maneuver. House head Yu. Yu Huixing was scared, not knowing how Xiaochen was going to deal with him. He couldn't find an excuse. Could it be that the pill was given to the hidden House Zhao? If he were to tell the truth, not only would he not be able to avenge House Yu, he might even be slapped to death by Yu Xiaochen. So Yu Huixing's mind raced, trying to think of a reasonable excuse to avoid House Yu's blame. Me what? Can't think of an excuse anymore? Xiaochen laughed coldly. No. I'm a bit embarrassed to say it. Yu Huixing lowered his head. He'd already thought of an excuse, and he pretended to be embarrassed. What's there to be embarrassed about? Xiaochen frowned. Actually, in the tomb, the male thief was Lin Yi. Yu Huixing started making up a story. He thought of a way to avoid responsibility and frame Lin Yi at the same time. This way, the hidden House Yu would target Lin Yi, and Lin Yi would be done for. The male thief was Lin Yi? Xiaochen paused. Then how could the male thief be Lin Yi? Plus, even if it was Lin Yi, what does that have to do with you not handing over the pill? I'm ashamed to say that my pill was stolen by Lin Yi. Yu Huixing said sadly. Your pill was stolen by Lin Yi? According to what I know, Lin Yi was only a mystic mid-phase peak, before he went to the test, right? You were already in Earth class early phase at that time. And you were still scared of Lin Yi? Xiaochen felt that Yu Huixing's words were a bit strange. So that's why I didn't dare tell you the truth. Yu Huixing said angrily. That Lin Yi may be a mystic mid-phase peak, but he has a trump card that's really strong. And I was poisoned. Yes, poisoned. Even if I was in Earth class, I wouldn't be Lin Yi's opponent. And so my pill was stolen by Lin Yi. Then why didn't you say so earlier? Xiaochen wasn't an idiot. Yu Huixing's words weren't very detailed, and he couldn't just believe it. I was afraid of losing face, wasn't I? I'm in Earth class early phase, and my pill was stolen by a mystic mid-phase peak. How would I be able to face anyone if this got out? Yu Huixing said with a sad face. House head, but you know that Lin Yi does have some tricks up his sleeves. Otherwise he wouldn't have been able to kill my brother. After my brother took the pill, he was on par with an Earth class early phase peak. And since Lin Yi can fight above his level then, I know that Lin Yi has some special abilities of course. I don't need you to explain. Xiaochen waved his hand. He knew Lin Yi very well. This guy was able to make Feng Nitian and Zhang Naipeo, two disciples from the ancient houses and sects, lose to him. He definitely wasn't a simple character. The question was, how trustworthy could Yu Huasheng's words be? Yes. I'm sorry, house head Yu. I hid the truth before because I was afraid of being punished by the house. Yu Huasheng said carefully. Are you telling the truth? Xiaochen frowned. Of course I don't dare hide anything. Yu Huasheng said in fear. If that's the case, then I'll write a letter and ask Yu Bing if Lin Yi really took the pill. Xiaochen said coldly, as if he didn't believe Yu Huasheng's words. But in reality, Xiaochen believed most of it already. Yu Bing was on good terms with Lin Yi during the test, so the news of Yu Huasheng getting the pill was most likely from Lin Yi as well. Lin Yi and the common house Yu were enemies, and Lin Yi was probably trying to use Yu Bing to spread the news to the hidden house Yu, and have them deal with Yu Huasheng, or at least not participate in the battle between Lin Yi and the common house Yu. Chapter 17-18. Otherwise, where would Yu Bing have gotten this information from? Don't. Yu Huasheng jumped when he heard that Xiaochen was going to ask him. He subconsciously tried to stop him, but regretted it immediately. Wouldn't it mean that he was guilty if he stopped him? Don't. What? You're afraid that your lie will be exposed? Xiaochen had already believed most of it, but now that Yu Huasheng was saying this, he was starting to doubt himself. Saint Hall no. I mean, if you ask him like this, how would Lin Yi admit to it? Yu Huasheng said. I'm guessing that it was Lin Yi who told young Master Yu that I got the qi-gathering pill, and his goal was to make you blame me. But you're a wise man. How would you fall for that easily? Yu Huasheng was a careful man. He'd heard Xiaochen's words very carefully. He'd caught on to the fact that Lin Yi had joined the test as well, so he'd be able to frame Lin Yi. No need to flatter me, get to the point. Xiaochen waved his hand, not buying it. Yes. Yu Huasheng continued his analysis. So think about it. If you were young Master Yu Bing's good friend, would you admit that you stole their qi-gathering pill? What you said is not without reason. Xiaochen nodded. But I'd still write a letter to ask if Lin Yi was the male thief, if he participated in the tomb robbery. That. Yu Huasheng was scared, but he couldn't say it out loud. Look, Master. Since young Master Yu Bing didn't mention Lin Yi in the letter, it means that he's trying to cover for Lin Yi. How would he admit to it if you asked? If it were me, I'd deny it as well. Oh, it doesn't matter. We just need to pay attention to the technique when we ask. Xiaochen waved his hand casually. When the time comes, I'll just ask him directly. Why didn't he tell me that Lin Yi was a male thief, and that he got the qi-gathering pill as well? Why did he hide the truth? I didn't explain in detail, and pretended that I knew everything to reproach him. That. Yu Huasheng was a little helpless. He had no reason to argue anymore. One had to admit that Xiaochen's suggestion was very logical. As a member of House Yu, Yu Bing wouldn't dare hide anything under such a harsh tone. But, if Yu Bing really didn't know anything, no matter how much he blamed him, no matter how much he pretended to know everything, Yu Bing wouldn't admit it. Therefore, Yu Huasheng was worried that he had said it on the spur of the moment. What would he do when the truth came out? Alright, it's decided then. Xiaochen waved his hand. If it really was Lin Yi, then I won't make it hard for you. I know that Lin Yi has some skills. But if you're just making it up, then you know the consequences. With that, Xiaochen waved his hand impatiently and picked up his teacup. Yu Huasheng knew that Xiaochen was asking him to leave, and he could only sigh helplessly. There was no point in talking about this. He could only wait for the final result. Yu Huasheng walked back to his place, only to realize that Yu Lu was following him, and it was very blatantly. He knew that he was being watched. I hope that Yu Bing can help me as well. Yu Huasheng prayed for a miracle in his heart. Xiaochen watched as Yu Huasheng left and quickly rushed to the old ancestors' practicing grounds. This was a huge matter, and he had to discuss it with his father. The old ancestor was a little curious about Xiaochen's return. I say, Xiaochen, why are you back? Is it because of Yu Huixing? Yes, it's because of Yu Huixing. Xiaochen was impressed by his father's sharp eyes. He nodded quickly. St. Hall. You can't even make a decision on such a small matter? The old ancestor was a little surprised. Xiaochen wasn't someone like that before. Dealing with Yu Huixing wasn't a big deal. Was there a need to discuss it with him? There's something else going on here. Xiaochen shook his head. Father, I did as you asked and showed the letter to Yu Huixing, and he told me the reason behind it. Oh, what reason? The old ancestor was curious as well. What secret could there be? It's like this. Xiaochen repeated what Yu Huixing had said, as well as his analysis of the suspicious points, as well as the credibility of the words. According to what he said, it's possible, but also impossible. The old ancestor nodded. Writing a letter and asking is the right thing to do. You can make the decision yourself. Just tell me the result. It's not a big deal. Yes, I'll write a letter and ask now, Xiaochen replied. After returning from the old ancestor's training grounds, the first thing Xiaochen did was to write a letter blaming Lin Yi. Of course, he didn't go into the details, but he used an affirmative tone to say that he knew that Lin Yi had participated in the tomb robbery, and that Lin Yi had gotten the qi-gathering pill. Why didn't Yu Bing report this? As for the details, Xiaochen didn't mention anything. This was also because he didn't want to expose himself. If Yu Bing really did have something to hide, he'd definitely give an explanation after reading this letter. He wrote too much, and it felt like he was trying to cover something up. After writing the letter, Xiaochen walked quickly to his daughter's room. Xiaochen was an Earth-class late-phase peak, and if he didn't make any noise, Yu Ning wouldn't be able to hear anything. The other disciples and servants of house, Yu naturally wouldn't stop him when they saw him. And so, Xiaochen came to Yu Ning's room without any obstructions, only to find that she was painting. Xiaochen didn't mind that Yu Ning was painting, but when he saw the person in the painting, he frowned. Ahem. Xiaochen coughed twice. Yu Ning jumped in fright, and the brush in her hand shook. The painting was ruined. She didn't think that someone would suddenly appear in the quiet room, and when Yu Ning turned around, she realized that it was her father. Her face reddened, and she wanted to pull down her drawing board. I've already seen it, there's no need to hide it. Xiaochen had wanted to have a good talk with his daughter, but seeing how infatuated she was still drawing Lin Yi. Target equals underscore blank. Chapter 17-19. In the painting, there was a man and a woman, sitting together in an empty field, looking up at the starry sky. The woman in the painting was Yu Ning. This made Xiaochen even angrier. So what if he sees it? Yu Ning was stubborn as well. Since her father saw it, there was no point in hiding it anymore. Underscore. You and Lin Yi will never happen, Xiaochen said coldly. I talked to your grandpa today. Your identity is different. You and Lin Yi will never be together in this life. Stop dreaming. Yu Ning pursed her lips and didn't say anything, but from her expression, it was clear that she didn't listen to Xiaochen's words at all. After all, she'd heard it too many times, and was numb to it. However, she never gave up on that stubbornness. Closing her eyes, Yu Ning would remember that year, that night, that Valentine's Day, in front of the fire in the cave, the two of them looking at the starry sky together. That was the happiest night Yu Ning had ever had, and it was a time she'd dreamed of thousands of times. This is a letter from Yu Bing, Xiaochen said helplessly, seeing that his daughter wasn't saying anything. He placed the letter on Yu Ning's desk and turned to leave. Remember what I said, Lin Yi may have some skills, but he's not worthy of your identity. You're destined to become a sky class of House Yu, and a sky class late phase peak at that. Lin Yi will never be able to surpass you in this lifetime. Dad, don't underestimate him. Yu Ning wasn't too happy. No one wanted their lover to be belittled by their parents like that. Underestimate? Xiaochen shook his head. Ning, you don't understand it yet. But you'll understand when you get to that step. I'm not afraid of hurting your confidence. But unless Lin Yi has the strength to surpass all the ancient sects, don't even think about it. I believe he'll do it. Yu Ning said. Him? Do it? Xiaochen was amused by his daughter's stubbornness. He couldn't imagine that his daughter would be this infatuated, believing in something like this. From childhood to adulthood, my sixth sense has always been very accurate, Yu Ning insisted. Xiaochen shook his head and didn't say anything else. He felt that his daughter had already gone crazy, and there was no point in saying anything more. He could only turn around and leave, letting his daughter think things through on her own. Yu Ning was at home anyways, and there was no chance for her to see Lin Yi. Xiaochen wasn't worried. Lin Yi and Yushu returned to Songshan, and the first thing they did after dropping Yushu off at home was go to the floating cloud bar. At this moment, the bar had not opened yet. The waiter was cleaning the bar, but the door of the bar was kicked open. Lin Yi didn't waste any time and directly barged in. It wasn't the first time he came to the floating cloud bar, so he was familiar with the place. Sihua had brought Boss Zhu to the orphanage early in the morning to negotiate with the headmaster of the orphanage. He wanted to settle things as soon as possible before anything else happened. Although the fire had destroyed his building, it was still a big crime to set fire to the orphanage. He was afraid that the orphanage wouldn't let him off easily, and if things got out of hand, he'd be in big trouble. Jiaonong was assigning tasks to the waiters when he saw Lin Yi barge in. He jumped in shock. Not good, Lin Yi's here. Jiaonong yelled, warning Zhao Qibing and Yao in the room. Zhao Qibing was in the middle of it all, and he almost went mad from Su Jiaonong's shout. Although he didn't go mad, all his previous efforts were in vain. The pure qi he had accumulated for the entire night had all dissipated in fear. Lin Yi, what are you doing here? Zhao Qibing was a little traumatized. Seeing Lin Yi, he couldn't help but feel the pain in his leg. He couldn't even stand straight. You don't know why I'm here? Lin Yi looked at Zhao Qibing with a smile that wasn't a smile. How would I know? Zhao Qibing remembered that he was now Elder Bai's direct disciple, and his courage returned. Why would he be afraid of Lin Yi? He was now one of the candidates for the head of the house. He was no longer the Zhao Qibing from before. Oh, I'm actually here to break your leg, Lin Yi said as he walked towards Zhao Qibing. You, don't do anything stupid. Zhao Qibing jumped in fright. He wanted to ask Boss Zhu for help, but he suddenly remembered that Boss Zhu was taken away by Sihua to threaten the orphanage's headmaster. In his bar, other than Yao Wang, a mystic class master who wasn't very good at fighting, there was only Uncle Zhu the cripple. It's fine if I don't do anything stupid. You burned the orphanage, right? Lin Yi asked. Me? How is that possible? My building has been burned down. How can I be the one who burned it? I'm also looking for the arsonist. Zhao Qibing denied flatly. He thought that Lin Yi really was here for the orphanage. Why did this guy like to stick his nose into other people's business? They didn't earn much money from the reconstruction of the slums, and the compensation they gave to the residents was the highest standard. He wanted to earn some money from the orphanage, but this Lin Yi was sticking his nose into other people's business again. Oh, there's no need to look for him. I found him for you. It's you, Lin Yi said. Me? Lin Yi, don't talk nonsense. Zhao Qibing knew that he wasn't the same as before, but he was still afraid of Lin Yi. If I say it's me, then it's me, Lin Yi said. Do you want me to break your leg before you admit it? Zhao Qibing was speechless. He didn't want to admit it, so he broke his leg to force him to admit it? Who would do something like that? But thinking back to Lin Yi's domineering style, he really might do it. Lin Yi's story had spread across the world. Lin Yi had destroyed the common house Yu, and Zhao Qibing didn't doubt that Lin Yi would break his leg. If Lin Yi dared to mess with the hidden house Yu, what was the hidden house Zhao to him? Is it me or not? I'll count to 3. If you don't admit it, then I'll break your leg. 2 last time, 3 this time, Lin Yi said impatiently. Then it's me who burned it. Zhao Qibing had no choice but to admit it. Lin Yi could even beat a drugged Yu Shuixing to death, so even if Boss Zhu was here, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Lin Yi. Unless Elder Bai made a move himself, he wouldn't be able to hurt Lin Yi at all. But with the Hidden House Association, Elder Bai couldn't walk around the common world. A wise man knows when to retreat, and Zhao Qibing could only admit it, even though he didn't know what Lin Yi was planning. Since you've admitted it, then it's easy. Pay up, Lin Yi said. You burned down an orphanage, you have to pay at least 30 to 50 million, right? Plus the money you owe me last time. Give me 200 million. Chapter 1720. Qibing finally understood why Lin Yi was here. He was here to ask for money. But where did Qibing have the money? He still owed Bloodstained Yellow Springs Sect 300 million. And now Lin Yi was here to ask for 200 million? How was he supposed to live? Even if Qibing sold everything he had, he wouldn't be able to pay this amount of money. Are you going to give it to me or not? Lin Yi frowned. He was getting impatient. I can give it to you, but I really don't have that much money right now. Look at my building. Everything was burned down. And my real estate company hasn't even made any money yet. I'm already losing money. And I've already rebuilt 3 buildings. Qibing said bitterly. Then can I owe it to you first? Owe it to you? How long do you owe? Lin Yi saw that Qibing really didn't have any money, so he didn't force him. 2 years. Within 2 years, I'll definitely pay you back. I can write an IOU, Qibing said. He wanted to get rid of Lin Yi first. Who knows, he might be able to become an Earth-class master in 2 years. By then, he wouldn't have to be afraid of Lin Yi anymore. Oh, then write it. Lin Yi didn't expect Qibing to give him any money. This guy was so poor that his building was destroyed 3 times. He was probably broke as well. Extorting a few million from him wouldn't be enough for him to do anything. Qibing had no choice but to write an IOU to Lin Yi. But Lin Yi frowned after looking at the IOU. You owe me for 2 years, and you don't even have any interest? I have a few million in the bank, right? Interest? Can I not? Qibing didn't want to give him the money at all, but he was instinctively afraid of Lin Yi. He was afraid that when Lin Yi became stronger, he would have to pay him back. It's fine if you don't want it. Lin Yi put the IOU in his pocket and said, Then I'll collect some interest now. Now. Qibing was quite happy when he heard the first half of Lin Yi's sentence, but when he heard the second half, he almost fell to the ground. But before Qibing could sit down, 2 crisp sounds were heard, and he fell onto the ground, because his leg was broken by Lin Yi again. Ouch! Qibing groaned in pain, but he was a practitioner now, so he could still hold it in. He endured the pain in his leg, sweating profusely. You didn't keep your word. Didn't you say you'd stop fighting if I paid you back? Didn't I leave you a leg? Could it be that you want to break your 3rd leg as well? As Lin Yi spoke, he raised his leg and pretended to step down. Qibing shook his head. No, I don't want to. He admitted that he was unlucky. Now that he met Lin Yi, he really couldn't do anything. But he swore in his heart that one day, he would torture Lin Yi to death. He wanted to break every bone in Lin Yi's body, and let him have a taste of this pain. I'll burn this bar down for you. If you dare to put it out, I'll burn it down in the middle of the night. If you can't escape, then don't blame me for not reminding you. As Lin Yi spoke, a flame appeared in his hand. He casually threw it on the wooden decorations of the bar, and it lit up in flames. Lin Yi, on the other hand, turned and walked out of the bar. After Lin Yi left, Su Jiaonong, who was hiding at the side, ran over. Master Bing, what do we do now? Should we call the police and put out the fire? Put out my ass, let it burn. Didn't you hear what Lin Yi said? If I put out the fire, what if he comes back in the middle of the night? Qibing raged. Why aren't you carrying me out? Ask everyone in the bar to leave. Do you want to burn me to death? Yes. Yes. Su Jiaonong wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and hurriedly replied. In House Chu's villa, Yushu was excitedly telling Meng Yao and Tang Yin about what happened during the noble house meeting. That old bastard Shuixing thought that he could go on a killing spree just because he took the pill and became an Earth-class early phase. At that time, the atmosphere was really tense. All the families that were close to Shield Bro were in danger. My grandpa, Grandpa Wu, and Grandpa Song were all very worried. Yushu described the scene vividly. making Mingyao and Tang Yun's hearts skip a beat. At that time, Shield Bro appeared, and in an instant, he showed his strength as an Earth class, making that old bastard Shuaixing jump in fright. Everyone's jaw dropped as well. So Shield Bro was an Earth class as well. Yushu described in detail, making Tang Yin and Mingyao feel as if the whole thing was happening right in front of their eyes. She took a sip of ice water and said, "It's so hot. Why is it so hot? Is the air conditioner on?" "It's on," Mingyao said bitterly. "Tang Yin and I are freezing, and you're saying it's hot? Don't make so many exaggerated gestures when you're telling the story." "Ugh. Is that so?" Yushu stuck out her tongue, giggling. "Then it wouldn't be interesting. Let's continue. When we were talking about Shield Bro, that old bastard Shuaixing didn't dare to go head-to-head with Shield Bro. So he went to attack my brother. He was about to hit my brother, and Shield Bro couldn't stop him in time. That was when Shield Bro shouted, 'Earth-class skill Frenzy Fire Fist.' That old bastard Shuaixing jumped in fright and dodged immediately. But after waiting for a long time, he didn't see any skill, and only then did he realize that he was tricked. Shield Bro didn't use any skill at all. He was just tricking him. Haha, Mingyao and Tang Yun were amused as well. They didn't expect Lin Yi to be this shameless. Why did it feel like Yushu's style? And then that old bastard Shuaixing got pissed off, saying that Shield Bro tricked him. I'm still so hot. I didn't even move. Why am I still so hot? Yushu said as she drank another mouthful of ice water. You're too excited, aren't you? Tang Yin said. Do you want me to get some ice cream? Sure, Yushu said. I want the super big ones. But I'm still so hot right now. These pajamas are too hot. I'll just take them off. With that, Yushu took off her pajamas, leaving only her bra on. Shoo, what are we going to do when Lin Yi comes back like this? Mingyao frowned. It's fine, I'll put them back on in a bit. But it doesn't matter if he sees it. He's seen it a couple of times already. Yushu said nonchalantly. Mingyao didn't say anything more. Yushu was just like that, always feeling hot for no reason. She didn't even wear clothes at home. Chapter 1725, Shu is Sick Part 2. Things had gotten better after Lin Yi's arrival, but it seemed that things were starting to get worse again. It's so hot. It's better to be naked. Yushu didn't wait for Mingyao to say anything before taking off her bra and pajamas, leaving only her underwear on. She started running around the room like a headless fly. It's so hot, I'm going to die from the heat. Mingyao didn't know what to say. There was a sea of white and 2 super large papayas in front of her. It was making her dizzy. Shu, the more you run around the hotter you'll get. Calm down and wait for Yin to get you some ice cream. Oh, Yushu stopped. But it still seemed like she was still hot. Tang Yin came back at this time, and was shocked to see Yushu naked. Luckily, the 3 of them had showered together before, so it wasn't too shocking. Shu, here's some ice cream. It's not very good for you to be like this. Give it to me, give it to me. Yushu took the ice cream from Tang Yin, but the moment her hand touched the ice cream melted into a puddle of liquid, and in the blink of an eye, it flowed all over the floor. Ah, this ice cream. Tang Yin thought that the fridge was broken, but she looked at the other 2 ice creams in her hands. Yushu's ice cream was the only one that melted. Mingyao, on the other hand, realized that something was wrong as well. She reached out to touch Yushu, only to have the latter jump in fright as she pulled her hand back with a yelp. Why is it so hot? Shu you. Yao yao, I feel like I'm getting cooked. What should I do? What should I do? Yushu's fair skin was starting to turn an unnatural shade of red. It was the color of a cooked crab. What? What's going on? Tang Yin was a little confused. Yao yao, why don't you go online and check what's going on? Okay. Mingyao nodded quickly and picked up the tablet beside her to check Shu's symptoms. Lin Yi was looking for trouble with Lin Yi, so Mingyao didn't want to disturb Lin Yi by calling him. Did you find it? Tang Yin asked. I found it. But the internet says that Shu's symptoms are due to an aphrodisiac? Mingyao looked at the screen with a weird expression. It says that after a girl is drugged, her body will heat up and she will take off her clothes. Ugh. Tang Yin looked at the explanation on the screen and looked at Shu. Why didn't it seem like it? She blushed and said embarrassedly, "That's not right. I was drugged with that drug once. But after that, not only did I heat up, and I really want to do that." "That's right, Shu looks pretty normal. She doesn't look like she's been drugged. Plus, she came back with Lin Yi. There's no way anyone would have had the chance to do that. It can't be Lin Yi." Meng Yao nodded as she tossed the laptop aside. "Whatever, let's not look into it anymore. Yeah, Shield Bro doesn't even need to drug Shu. It's so hot. I just feel hot, nothing else." Yushu nodded. "Why don't you try taking a cold shower?" Tang Yun was sweating after hearing Yushu's words. She quickly suggested, Okay, Yao Yun, help me turn on the water. I feel like I'm burning up. It's so uncomfortable." Yushu moaned in pain. Meng Yao and Tang Yun quickly ran to the bathroom to put cold water in Yushu's bathtub. Tang Yun was confused. What's wrong with Shu? Was she like this before too? I don't know. She used to say it was hot all the time, taking off all her clothes in the villa in the middle of winter. I didn't pay much attention to it before, because I thought she liked not wearing clothes. But it's never been this serious before. Meng Yao was panicking as well. She looked at the running water and wanted it to be bigger. Maybe we should give Linny a call. Let him take a look at Shu? Tang Yin didn't know what to do. Yushu couldn't have matured so quickly, could she? How can we call Linny when Shu's like this? Meng Yao smiled bitterly. She's hiding her illness. Tang Yin smiled bitterly as well. Shu doesn't care about it, and neither do I. We can't just carry her to the hospital like this, right? If there's no other way, we can only call Linny back. Meng Yao nodded helplessly. Tang Yin was right. If she and Shu didn't care, why should she be nervous? Besides, it was better to let Linny see than to let others see, right? Plus, it wasn't the first time Shu had been seen. She was always saying that she wanted to be Lin Yi's mistress, so it wasn't a big deal to have a look. After the cold water was ready, Yushu ran in impatiently, took off her underwear, and jumped into the bathtub. Not only did the cold water fail to cool her down, it even started boiling and bubbling. It was as if Yushu was being cooked. Yushu jumped out of the bathtub with a whoosh and screamed, It's hot. Shu, you're hotter than boiling water. You're boiling the water." Meng Yao shook her head as she picked up her phone. "I'll call Lin Yi. It looks like you're sick." Lin Yi received Meng Yao's call as soon as he left the floating cloud bar. "Miss, what's wrong? What's wrong?" Lin Yi was just about to head home when Meng Yao's call came in unexpectedly. Meng Yao wasn't monitoring Lin Yi like she used to these days, and she didn't ask him to come home at a certain time, either. "What, miss? I'm not joking with you." Chapter 1721. Chapter 1726. Shu is sick, Part 2. Chapter 1726. Shu is sick, Part 2. Meng Yao was a little embarrassed, but when Linny hung up the phone, she realized that she was thinking too much. Linny sped up the car and rushed back to the villa. Linny opened the door himself, and Meng Yao and Tang Yun were standing at the bathroom door, each holding a water gun to spray Yushu's body to lower her temperature. The flowing water was better, although it would boil instantly. It absorbed most of Yushu's body temperature. Linny went upstairs and heard the sound of water in the bathroom. He hesitated and asked at the door, Can I go in?" "Linny, you are back." Tang Yun quickly opened the door. "Hurry up and check on Shu, she can't take it anymore." Linny saw the scene in the bathroom and was shocked. Tang Yun and Meng Yao were spraying water on Shu's body. But when the water touched Shu's body, it seemed to boil instantly, making a sizzling sound and emitting steam. It was like she was in a sauna, but the steam was made by Shu herself. What happened to her? When Linny sent Shu back, she was still fine, but after going out for a walk, she became like this. Linny didn't have time to admire Shu's body, because her whole body had turned red. "We are not sure. She told us about your experience at the Noble House meeting, and then she said it was hot, so she took off her clothes, and then it got hotter and hotter." Meng Yao quickly explained what happened. "I did." Linny braved the water gun and walked to Shu's side. Just when he put his hand on her wrist to feel her pulse, Lenny subconsciously pulled his hand away, and Lenny gritted his teeth. Lenny glanced at his hand. It was covered in blisters. The temperature was at least 100 degrees Celsius. But what puzzled Lenny was that Shoo didn't seem to be burned. Although her body was red, it didn't cause any big problems. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been burnt to death. Lenny activated the art of dragon mastery and quickly healed his burn wounds. Then he used his chi to protect his hand and went to feel Shoo's pulse. Shield bro. I'm so hot. Can you carry me to the ice palace to keep me company? I'm dying, Yushu said, panting. Lenny did not reply. Instead, he frowned deeply. Inside Yushu's body, Lenny didn't find anything wrong with it. It was like a normal person, but there was an inexplicable heat. You didn't find anything wrong with you? Shu doesn't seem to be sick. Lenny shook his head and said, What's going on? It's a little similar to Xiaoxiao's. Xiaoxiao's body is extremely cold, and yours is extremely hot. But there are no other symptoms? Shu isn't sick. Mingyao was shocked. Then You guys maintain it for a while. I'll call my old man and ask him if he has seen something like this. Lenny had no choice but to ask old Lin for help. Lenny quickly went out of the bathroom. In the bathroom, Lenny felt unbearably hot, and he was covered in water as if he had just taken a sauna. Lenny took out his phone and wanted to call old Lin, but his phone was soaked in water. He couldn't use it at all. Lenny quickly ran downstairs and used the landline in the living room to call old Lin. You're calling me again so soon? Old Lin picked up the phone. It was a little strange. Lenny had called him about the orphanage, and not long after, the second call came. Old man, I need to ask you something. If a person's whole body is hot, but there are no other symptoms after a check, what's going on? Lenny asked urgently. Oh, what do you mean by a whole body is hot, but there are no other symptoms after a check? Explain it in detail. Old Lin didn't quite understand Lin Yi's question. It's like this. Lin Yi explained Yushu's situation to old Lin in detail. That's how it is. I feel like I'm at my wit's end right now. Do you have any ideas? Why do you think this situation is similar to the legendary fire poison? Old Lin was stunned. Fire poison? No way. Xiao Xiao has the cold poison, and now there's the fire poison? Lin Yi was also stunned. Xiao Xiao doesn't have the cold poison. It's just similar to the cold poison, but her situation is really hard to say. Old Lin shook his head and said, I can't say for sure right now. Why don't you bring her to me? Bring her? Then she can't die, right? Lenny asked with a bitter smile. According to what you said, if she hasn't been burned to death after so long, then she won't die. Old Lin said. There shouldn't be a problem. Okay. If there's no other way, I'll bring her back. Lenny smiled bitterly. At the same time, in the bathroom upstairs, Yushu suddenly waved her hand at Mingyao and Tang Yin. Right, I remember. I've had this problem since I was young. In the second drawer of the bedside table in my bedroom, there's a small bottle with special medicine in it. Just bring it to me. Ah? Okay. Mingyao heard Yushu's words and quickly replied. She threw down the water gun and quickly ran back to the room. As expected, she found a delicate small bottle in the drawer of the bedside table. She picked it up and quickly ran back to the bathroom. Shu, is this it? Nen, hurry up and take the pill out for me. Yushu looked at it, nodded, and said hurriedly. Okay. Mingyao nodded and opened the small bottle. There was a pill inside. Is this it? Why does it feel like it was licked by someone? Did the sugar on the outside melt? Oh, maybe it was sprayed by Yin Yun's water gun. Give it to me. Yushu opened her mouth. Mingyao remembered that this was the life-saving pill Yushu was waiting for. She didn't dare to ask anymore, and quickly threw the pill into Yushu's mouth. Yushu swallowed the pill, and after a while, she suddenly shivered and shouted. Wow, it's so cold. Turn off the water valve. I'm freezing to death. Ah. Tang Yin paused, but saw that Yushu's skin color had returned to normal. She quickly turned off the water valve and said, You're okay? Yes, I'm freezing to death. I need a towel to wipe myself. Yushu nodded. I'm freezing to death. I'm freezing to death. Hashtag, you can see or. Chapter 1722. Treating a guest. Ming Yao didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she watched Yushu walking around in circles. She was the complete opposite of what she was doing before. Lin Yi had come up the stairs as well. He was just about to go into the washroom to check on Yushu when he saw a white body running out. Lin Yi, an Earth class early phase, accidentally bumped into the body. So comfortable. That was Lin Yi's first feeling. The second feeling was that his body felt cold, as if someone was glaring at him. Lin Yi turned around and saw Tang Yun smiling. Lin Yi paused and let go of Shu awkwardly. Huh? Shu, how come you're fine? Miracle Dr. Lin. You're so powerful, and you still can't see that Shu's skin color is normal? Even an Earth-class master couldn't hide from it. What would you do if it was an enemy? Tang Yin was a little jealous. If it was under other circumstances, she wouldn't know, but Lin Yi was flirting with Shu in front of her. This made her unhappy. Ugh. Lin Yi didn't think that his subconscious action was seen through by Tang Yun. To be honest, Lin Yi didn't think too much about it. He just couldn't resist the temptation and made a small mistake. Tang Yun caught him red-handed, which made him embarrassed. I was too anxious and didn't pay attention. Ming Yao naturally understood and covered her mouth to hide her laughter. So Tang Yun still had a little temper. It had been hard on her recently. She had been tolerating Lin Yi and Shu, and today, she finally exploded under Lin Yi's evil actions. Alright, it's fine now. Tang Yun was just pointing it out. If she didn't let it go, not only would it embarrass Lin Yi, but it would also make Ming Yao look down on her. So Tang Yun only warned Lin Yi. Shu ran to the bedroom to wipe her body. Lin Yi laughed dryly and said, how did she recover? I'm not too sure, but Shu said that it's an old problem of hers. She suddenly remembered that she had a special medicine and asked me to get it for her. She'll be fine after taking it. Ming Yao explained. Special medicine? What special medicine? Lin Yi asked. This is it. Ming Yao handed the bottle to Lin Yi. Is there more in here? That's all? Lin Yi looked at the bottle in his hand. The craftsmanship was extremely exquisite, but it was empty. There were no pills inside. Nope, just one pill. Ming Yao said. I see. Lin Yi put the bottle under his nose and took a sniff. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary, only the scent of sugar coating. It seemed that the pill was covered in sugar, and nothing else could be detected from the inside of the bottle. Yeah, we'll have to ask Shu later. We have a lot of questions too, Ming Yao shrugged. When Yushu came out of the bedroom again, she was already in her pajamas. Her face was back to normal. Shu, are you alright? Ming Yao asked with lingering fear. Yeah, I'm fine. Yushu shook her head and smiled. Hee, I made you guys worry. Shu, what's going on? I heard from Yao Yao that it's an old problem. Lin Yi looked at Shu's complexion. She was indeed back to normal. She was like a different person from before. Yeah, it's an old problem. It acted up when I was young, but it never acted up again after I grew up. Yushu nodded. I almost forgot. There's a special medicine I brought from home. I didn't think it'd take so many years to use. Special medicine? Did you see a doctor when you were young? Lin Yi asked as he fiddled with the bottle in his hand. Yeah, I did. It's fine, Yushu said casually. The doctor said that it'll be fine for a long time after I eat it. What do you do if it happens again? Lin Yi asked. Do you have more of this medicine? Let me study it. I'll see if I can find the formula. Oh, it's at home. I'll go get it when I'm free next time, Yushu said. Alright. Lin Yi calmed down after hearing Yushu's words. Alright, I'm fine now. To celebrate, let's go out for a big meal tonight? Yushu suggested. She didn't want to talk about it anymore. Sure, what do you want? Lin Yi asked with a smile. Let's go eat steak. I'm craving steak. Yushu said. Sure. I'll make a call and book a table at a Western restaurant. Ming Yao nodded. Ming Yao was just about to make the call when her phone rang. Daddy, why are you calling me at this hour? Ming Yao found it odd that the call was from Pengzhan. He usually called Ming Yao in the morning to let her know that he was safe. He rarely called in the afternoon. Yao Yao, are you free tonight? Wanna go out for dinner? Pengzhan said. Tonight? Dinner? Only you? Ming Yao blinked, not understanding why her father would want to go out for dinner tonight. It wasn't a weekend, nor was it a holiday. She didn't know why it was so sudden. It's your uncle and Mingyue and Jiangwen. Pengzhan sighed. They're old neighbors, and they came back to Songshan all of a sudden. They wanted to arrange a dinner for us. I couldn't reject them, so I agreed. Pengzhan actually liked Jiangwen quite a bit at first, but after Housen moved away, the two families only worked together in business. Today, Pengzhan didn't know what to do with Jiangwen's sudden visit, but he couldn't reject them because of his pride. After all, the two families had always been in business with each other, and they were old neighbors. Pengzhan couldn't reject them. Is that so? Mingyao frowned. Shu wants to eat steak. Where are they treating us? We haven't confirmed the place yet. I'll let them know if you agree. Pengzhan said. We don't know if you're free today, so we're not sure, but steak is fine. I'll tell them to go to a Western restaurant. All right, but bring Lin Yi and Tang Yin. Is that okay? Mingyao asked. Of course. Pengzhan smiled. It's just a family dinner. All right, I'll wait for your call, Daddy. Mingyao replied. Yushu hung up the phone. Yao Yao, someone's treating us? Hashtag target equals _ blank. Chapter 1723. Chapter 1728. Sending flowers. It's Jiangwen and Uncle Lin. Mingyao frowned. Dad couldn't reject them, they're our old neighbors, so. Jiangwen? Housen wants to treat you to a meal after being humiliated in the noble house meeting? They're not trying to get close to Shield Bro, are they? Yushu had seen House and leave the noble house meeting, so she found it strange that Housen was treating them to a meal all of a sudden. I'm not sure about that. Dad said that they're just business partners and old friends. They didn't mention anything else. Mingyao shook her head. Doesn't matter, let's go check it out tonight. Linny said. If it's just a meal, then we'll eat. As for other things, we'll see. Soon Pengzhan called again, confirming the restaurant. It was a comprehensive buffet restaurant with different cuisines from different countries. Of course, the price wasn't cheap. At 5 at night, Linny drove Mingyao, Yushu and Tang Yin to the restaurant they agreed on. They parked the car, and the four entered the restaurant. And Mingyue, Jiangwen, and Pengzhan were already there, waiting at the resting area on the first floor. Pengzhan waved his hand when he saw Lin Yi and the others. Yao Yao, you've gotten prettier in a few days. Jiangwen smiled as he took out a bouquet of flowers from somewhere and handed it to Mingyao. Really? I haven't been resting well these past few days, and I don't look well. You should get a pair of glasses. Mingyao didn't care at all for Jiangwen's praises, nor did she care about the flowers. Jiangwen was a little awkward. He didn't know why Mingyao didn't like him. Weren't they getting along well when they were kids? Why did they become so distant after they grew up? He didn't seem to understand Mingyao at all. In fact, if he looked at it from another angle, he didn't understand Mingyao, but Mingyao didn't understand him either. How could Mingyao know what he was doing in the dark? Ha, Yao Yao, you really know how to joke around. But even if you don't look well, you're still pretty. Jiangwen smiled as he raised the flowers in his hand. Fresh flowers with a beauty for you. Give it to Lin Yi. Mingyao didn't want to accept the flowers. Ah, Jiangwen paused. He wasn't gay, so why would he give the flowers to Lin Yi? But before he could react, the flower in Jiangwen's hand was already in Lin Yi's. Lin Yi divided the flowers into 3 portions and gave them to Tang Yin, Mingyao and Yushu. For you guys. Thank you. Mingyao happily accepted the flowers from Lin Yi, and Tang Yin and Yushu happily accepted them as well. Jiangwen gritted his teeth in anger, but there was nothing he could do. Let's go. I heard that Shu wants to eat steak, so I booked this buffet restaurant. The steak here is very authentic, and there are many snacks from all over the world. When they entered the restaurant, Jiangwen swiped his card. There was a total of 7 people eating, and it cost more than 20,000 yuan. The cost here wasn't low, and it wasn't lower than those high-class hotels. And that didn't include the drinks. If they wanted red wine, they would have to pay separately. The restaurant was very big, and there weren't many customers. The environment was very elegant, And there were small booths and private rooms. There was even a bar counter for customers to choose from. Old friend, we've been doing business together for a long time. But it's been a long time since we sat down and drank together like this. And Minghua smiled. Let's sit at a table, and let the kids sit at another table. We won't disturb each other. Haosen's actions this time surprised Lin Yi. The two didn't seem to have any awkwardness like they did at the Noble House meeting. It was as if the Noble House title didn't mean anything to Haosen. And they really did treat Pingzhan this time to reminisce about the past. After all, the father and son didn't have the slightest intention of getting on Lin Yi's good side. This made Lin Yi sigh in relief, but at the same time, he was confused. Lin Yi was afraid that Minghua would ask Pingzhan for them to join the practitioners' union. If Pingzhan really did ask, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to reject him. But now that worry was gone. But the two's actions made Lin Yi feel strange. Could it be that Minghua and Jiang Wen really didn't care about the Noble House title? Or did they have something else to rely on? As he was thinking, Jiang Wen smiled at everyone. Let's sit here, don't disturb the elders. With that, Jiang Wen pointed at a rather large open booth not too far away. This booth was for 6 people, meaning that only 3 people could sit in a row. Jiang Wen's arrangement meant that he wanted to sit next to Meng Yao. After all, Lin Yi and Tang Yun were a couple, and they couldn't be separated. Between Meng Yao and Yushu, one had to sit next to him. But as far as he was concerned, Yushu would either sit next to Lin Yi or Meng Yao. There was no way she would sit alone next to him. Meng Yao, naturally, understood what Jiang Wen was thinking. But in this restaurant, it was either a 4 or 6 person table. If there were more people, they would have to go to a small room. Pengzhan and Minghua weren't with them, so it wasn't appropriate for them to go to a private room. Hence, a 6-person booth was the best choice. But when they got close to the booth, Meng Yao said, "We girls can sit on one side. You guys can sit on the other side." Lin Yi didn't mind, but Jiang Wen was pissed. It took him so much effort to come up with such a good idea. And it was ruined just like that. But he couldn't say no right now. It'd look like he had bad intentions if he did. Sure, it doesn't matter where we sit. The most important thing is to eat. The food here is good. And there are snacks from all over the world. They're all very authentic. I've been here once, so let me be your guide, Jiang Wen said as he picked up his plate like a gentleman. Jiang Wen, your Haosen doesn't seem to be affected? Lin Yi couldn't help but ask. Jiang Wen gave him a very strange feeling. House Kong and whatnot wanted to join the ranks of the noble houses, but Haosen didn't seem to have that intention at all. Haha, Lin Yi, that's a different thing. We might have some conflicts and misunderstandings, but I'm the host right now. I'm treating Yao Yao's family to a meal. Give me some face. And let's not talk about this for now, Jiang Wen said with a carefree smile. #target=_blank. Chapter 1724. You too. But Jiang Wen moved closer to Lin Yi and lowered his voice. In fact, noble houses and whatnot don't really have much use for us, and our business is half black and half white, and keeping a low profile is the right thing to do. Conflict? Misunderstanding? I almost lost my kidney, Lin Yi said expressionlessly as he looked at Jiang Wen. I'm a victim too. I lost a kidney too. Jiang Wen smiled bitterly. You can't blame me. Lin Yi smiled faintly and didn't say anything else. Everyone knew what was going on. But Lin Yi had offended too many powers, and he didn't want to go against Jiang Wen right now. Otherwise, Lin Yi wouldn't have come to this dinner. Jiang Wen's firewolves were something that even Faubert didn't want to talk about. Evidently, they had a very strong background. Lin Yi would be an idiot to mess with a super gang like that. The group brought their plates to the buffet area. Since it was a buffet, they could choose how much they wanted to eat and what they wanted to eat. Jiang Wen started introducing the food along the way. This is the Korean cuisine area. Yao Yao, what do you want to eat? I'll get it for you. With that, Jiang Wen picked up a few pieces of Korean barbecued meat and put it on Meng Yao's plate. I don't want it, it's too oily. Meng Yao quickly moved her plate to the side, making Jiang Wen feel a little awkward. But since he'd already picked it up, he couldn't just put it back. But Jangwon didn't give up. He took 2 steps forward. There's Korean codfish here, it's not bad. I don't want it, it's too spicy. Mingyao shook her head. Jangwon put the codfish back on his plate. This beef is not bad. Do you want to try it? Jangwon didn't want to give up. I don't want it. Mingyao didn't want to explain. Jangwon put the beef tenderloin back on his plate. And so, Jangwon's plates piled up into a small mountain on the way, and he didn't find anything that suited Mingyao's taste. He had no choice but to pass the plate back to the waiter and get a new plate. What Jangwon didn't recommend, on the other hand, was something Mingyao randomly placed on her plate, making Jangwon regret his decision. It seemed that Mingyao's taste was quite unique. After a moment of regret, Jangwon decided that he'd ask Mingyao once every time it was a dish, but she'd always reject him. More and more dishes piled up on his plate, filling up 3 to 4 plates in one go. He'd asked the waiter to send them back a couple of times, but the waiter was still filling them up. But later on Jangwon learned his lesson. He'd ask first, and if Mingyao didn't want it he wouldn't take it. But if Mingyao wanted to eat it, she'd take it herself. Jangwon didn't even need to do anything. Jangwon didn't know what to do, so he continued asking. But Mingyao stopped eating again. But Jangwon was comforted by the fact that she was helping him a little, or he'd have to change a couple more plates. This was the first time he felt that Yushu was such a good friend. After a turn, they came to the dessert area, and Jangwon's eyes lit up. He found something that could improve his relationship with Mingyao. Jangwon quickly ran to a dessert stall and picked up a dessert, handing it to Mingyao. Yao Yao, this is one of the specialties here. It's a very popular snack on the internet. What's this? Mingyao frowned. It was quite scary. The thing in Jangwon's hand looked like a body part. It's called condor shao, haha, it's very famous. Why don't you try it? Jangwon explained evilly. Haha, doesn't it look like a body part? I don't want it, take it away. Mingyao glared at Jangwon. She didn't know what this guy was doing. What was he doing with this? Wasn't he just ruining her appetite? Jangwon didn't think that he'd make things worse. Wasn't this Mingyao a little too innocent? The last time Jangwon came, he'd come with Taizao and some other girls. And those girls had been fighting over the food, laughing and joking with Taizao and Jangwon. Why was it that the effect was completely different now that it was someone else? Shu, do you want it? Jangwon asked awkwardly. Oh, I'll try it. Yushu thought that this thing was quite fun, but she didn't know if it tasted good. Jangwon passed the condor shao to Shu, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. Shu didn't hold back and took a bite. Mingyao felt her face blushing. This Shu really dared to eat anything. Is it good? Jangwon asked. He'd wanted to ask Mingyao that question, so that the two of them could flirt a bit more. But Yushu had already eaten him up. Jangwon wasn't interested anymore, so he just asked a question symbolically. It's alright, but it's not as good as Shield Bros. Yushu said. Ah. Jangwon paused, and Lin Yi almost tripped over as well. Tang Yun, on the other hand, looked at Lin Yi suspiciously. Shu, you've eaten Lin Yi's food before? Mingyao felt that this was getting out of hand. How could the insensitive Yushu say something like that in front of everyone? I have. Yushu nodded with a straight face. Ahem. Lin Yi jumped as he looked at Mingyao and Tang Yun, who were looking at him suspiciously. He quickly said, Shu, when did you eat? When I was at home. Yushu said. At home. Mingyao glared at Lin Yi before turning to Shu with a serious tone. Shu, you need to make it clear. When did you eat at home? Where was I at that time? What was I doing? Mingyao was thinking about it as well. She and Shu were together almost every day, and sometimes Tang Yun was there too. She and Lin Yi didn't have the chance to do anything. Could it be that he hid it from her at night? A few days ago, you were at home too. You ate it too. Yushu said. Ha. Me. Mingyao almost dropped the plate in her hand. What kind of joke was this Shu playing at? When did she eat it? This time, Tang Yun didn't think that it was possible. Chapter 1725. But Mengyao was a person with strong principles. She wouldn't go along with Yushu, would she? Yeah, you ate it too. Yushu nodded. What did I eat? What did I eat? Mengyao raged. Shu, what are you talking about? I'm not talking about anything. Shield Bro made us some snacks last time. And it was much better than the ones here. Didn't you eat a lot too? Yushu said innocently. Ah. Mengyao blinked. She didn't know if she should laugh or cry. Was she thinking too much? Or was Shu doing it on purpose? She blushed. She almost misunderstood Lin Yi. Oh, I know, Yao Yao, you're thinking the wrong thing. You must be thinking that it's the same thing you and Shield Bro did in the cave. Yushu blinked. What did I do in the cave? I was just helping him suck out the poison. Mengyao quickly explained, afraid that Tang Yun would misunderstand. Jiang Wen was a bit troubled. He didn't get to flirt with Mengyao, but Lin Yi got to flirt with these people instead. He should have just burned the bird and eaten it. That would have saved him so much trouble. When did you cook it? Why didn't I eat it? Tang Yun kicked Lin Yi lightly. Holy Hall. Lin Yi smiled bitterly at Tang Yun. Next time I'll cook it for you alone. I'm not eating it. Tang Yun felt that Lin Yi's words were a bit ambiguous. Haha. Lin Yi smiled. I said the fire, not the bird. I won't eat anything. Tang Yun said. Alright, let's go have a look. There seems to be steak that Shu likes. Jiang Wen made 5 to 6 plates of food for himself. He didn't have the mood to ask Mengyao about it anymore. Everyone picked up the food and went back to their seats. Yushu started digging in while Mengyao and Tang Yun ate like a gentleman. Lin Yi was the same as Yushu, sitting there and eating. Lin Yi didn't care about other people's eyes at all. Tang Yun and Mengyao smiled bitterly as they watched Yushu and Lin Yi eating at each other's throats. These two were really a couple. They didn't care what other people thought of them no matter where they went. Shield Bro, this is delicious. It's not as good as your cooking, but it's not bad. Yushu gave Lin Yi a piece of grilled steak. Hee. Lin Yi laughed and stuffed it into his mouth. Takitara Jiang Wen was a little disdainful, but in his heart, he was still a little wary of Lin Yi. He wanted to mock him, but he didn't dare. Hao Sen's backing was much stronger than Lin Yi's. Even those hidden noble houses were nothing in front of the firewolves. But the relationship between Hao Sen and the firewolves was only a guess. Most people thought that Hao Sen was just a normal businessman, and they were in between the black and the white. Jiang Wen couldn't just bring up the firewolves, so he could only bear with Lin Yi for now. Remembering the purpose of this meal, Jiang Wen turned around with a smile and looked at Mengyao. Yao Yao, why do I feel like we've become so distant? Once I'm done with that thing, not only will House Chu's wealth be mine, but Mengyao will be mine too. But on the surface he smiled. Haha, you're right. 8 million it is then. That's more like it. Yushu nodded. When are you giving it to me? I'll make a call to transfer the money now. Haha, I'm a man of my words. This is just a small amount. Jiang Wen laughed. Jiang Wen was afraid that Yushu would say something else, so he quickly made the call. At the same time, Lin Yi received the message that the money had been transferred. Target equals _ blank. Lin Yi wanted to borrow some from Pengzhan, but he heard that Pengzhan was going to do a big project today, and Lin Yi didn't mention it again. Chapter 1727. Not enough to earn, Daddy's acting a little weird today. Before, he kept his distance from Jiang Wen's family, but now he's working with them again. Mengyao complained after getting in the car. After all, she had more chances to meet Jiang Wen, and it was troublesome to deal with him. I've heard of a saying, but I don't know if it's true. But in the business world, there are no true enemies and friends. As long as there's a common interest, enemies can become friends. Tang Yun said. I wonder if that's the case, Uncle Chu? I think so. Daddy's doing business is quite amazing. Meng Yao nodded. Tang Yin was talking about too many cases like this. Many companies that were suing each other turned into strategic partners in the blink of an eye. It wasn't a surprise that Peng Zhan and Mingyue were working together. Let's see. Uncle Chu should know what he's doing, Linny said. Meng Yao nodded and didn't say anything else. After getting home, the group packed their luggage and went back to West Star Village with Lin Yi. Of course, they had to go shopping before they left. As the saying goes, before the army moves, the food moves first. Meng Yao wanted to buy some things and mail them back first to avoid the awkwardness of not having anything. It was still early, so Meng Yao and the group went to the supermarket. In the supermarket, Tang Yun was a little worried. She felt like an ugly daughter-in-law meeting her parents-in-law. She had been with Lin Yi for so long, but she hadn't visited Lin Yi's elders yet. Would old Lin, who raised him, like her? Besides, Tang Yun wanted to buy a gift, but she didn't know what to buy. She held Meng Yao's hand and asked hesitantly, Yao Yao, what do you think I should buy? Although Lin Yi said that we don't need to buy anything, it's still a thought, right? If I really go to his house without bringing anything, will he think that I'm immature? Well, I'm definitely going to buy it, but I can't really tell you what to buy. I don't know what Grandpa Lin likes. Meng Yao said, a little troubled. I don't know what he likes. Old man, it's nothing more than drinking and whatnot. Maybe we should buy some good stuff back? Yushu suggested. My grandpa likes to drink. That works too. I think people usually give these things to their elders. Meng Yao said. Daddy always brings these things when he goes to Grandpa's house. Then let's buy a bar. But what should I buy? Tang Yun hesitated, not knowing what to buy. Why don't we ask Lin Yi? He knows us the best. Meng Yao couldn't make up her mind. Lin Yi didn't go shopping with the girls, leaving the bodyguard role to Wu Chintian, who had just returned to Songshan. He himself went to the orphanage's place of residence. This was an old-fashioned residential area, very similar to the place where Chen Shi's family lived. The top floor of each building was the kind of 6-story attic room. Although it looked like a duplex, in fact, because these buildings were built for too long, the condition of the top floor was very poor. Leakage was common, and the landlord, because the rent was cheap, would not be responsible for maintenance. Lin Yi couldn't help but shake his head when he saw this condition. It was really hard on these kids. And that miser, Yu Xiaoka. But whether she was a miser or a miser, she still lived in a place like this. She didn't want to spend a lot of money on building an orphanage. How could she live if she ran out of money? Sihua and Boss Zhu came to a simple agreement with the dean of the orphanage, exchanging a piece of land that was 5 times bigger than the orphanage's land. It seemed like the orphanage had a huge advantage, but that wasn't the case. The new land was located in a very remote area, at the edge of the city. It belonged to the suburbs, and the price of the land was much lower than the orphanage's land. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that there was a difference of 5 times. The problem was that Sihua only calculated the price of the land and didn't include the original house. Sihua's reason was simple. The house was burned down, so how could he give them compensation? Exchanging land of the same value was a matter of course, and was very fair. Although the dean wasn't willing, there was no other way. The house was gone, and she didn't have any bargaining chips in her hands. She had to do whatever Sihua said. Besides, Sihua didn't want to make a big deal out of this, so he didn't let the orphanage suffer any losses when exchanging the land. The problem was that the orphanage had a huge piece of land, and they didn't have the money to build it. This was the biggest problem. Sihua and Boss Zhu went back to the floating cloud bar, ready to take credit for what they did, but all they saw was a burnt-down area. Qibing, on the other hand, was sitting in an SUV not far away. Sihua jumped in fright as he ran to the SUV. Master Bing, what's going on? Is the bar on fire? Yeah, Qibing replied faintly. He didn't want to explain too much due to the humiliation. He was waiting for Elder Bai to heal him, and if it weren't for the fact that Elder Bai couldn't find another place, Sihua wouldn't be able to see Qibing. Ah, what's going on? Sihua asked. Since Elder Bai was coming, Qibing didn't want to explain too much. Nothing. How's it going on your side? Congratulations, Master Bing. Under the threats and promises of Boss Zhu and I, the headmaster of the orphanage finally gave in and agreed to exchange the land with us. Now the orphanage's land is ours, Sihua said quickly. Although the value of the land was about the same, Sihua was the one who got the better end of the deal. The land in the suburbs was useless to Sihua at all, and no one would buy it unless it was used to build a factory or something. But that was a rare occurrence, and Sihua's land was useless to him at the moment. Exchanging it to the orphanage was a huge win for him. Congratulations, my ass. Qibing couldn't hold it in anymore after hearing Sihua's words. Ah, Master Bing, we actually got the better end of the deal. That land is priceless, no one wants it. Sihua said carefully. Better? I lost 200 million to Lin Yi, just because of this fire. Look, Lin Yi broke my leg, and the bar was burned down by Lin Yi. Qibing said, look at me, I've lost so much. You're still taking advantage? #you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.